Meanwhile, Cameroon are trying to get their tournament kick-started after that 1-1 draw in the opening game. We've talked a lot about Onana and his absence so far from this tournament. He addressed it by saying, "Let people continue to criticise me. I'm used to it. I do what is good for my country. It's like choosing between my father and my mother, but my country comes first. That's why I'm here. We're together. I have a lot of things to say, but I won't say it here because we are in a competition. I'm one of those leaders, so I take responsibilities, and that is why I'm here. I don't want people to criticise the youngest." He wants to take all the criticism.
Well, the country doesn't come first. I don't want to go over all the ground and go.
I know, we go back to the World Cup, obviously.
I'm more interested in which one is his mother, which one is his father.
Oh.
Well, if his country comes first, right, which is his words, then how come he was lingering around getting Man United a very valuable point at home to Tottenham?
Mm-hmm.
Man United came first. Because if the country, you can't have it both ways, right? If you want to help Man United, which he did, then come out and say, I felt obligated to play for my club team here, and I was going to be late. But if you're going to say my country comes first and before anything else, then he wouldn't have played for Man United in that game. It's pretty simple. You can't. Both scenarios don't stack up. It's as simple as that.
There's a lot going on here, and while I understand and kind of supported what seemed to be a dialogue and the understanding between the Cameroon FA and Manchester United and Onana to allow him to stay and play that game and then travel late. Then he doesn't make the starting lineup, which seemed to be a bit of a surprise to him. Not a surprise at all to Rigobert Song, who said that was always the plan. Onana seems to voice some concern around that, which then suggests to me that Song was never that much on board with him, at the very least, arriving late, let alone coming back into the squad after what happened at the World Cup in 2022. So there's and I felt just the way that he left and the way that he was brought back in, I wondered if that kind of undermined Song's authority within the national team. And it shows that this was less about the coach in Rigobert Song and more about Cameroonian officials and Onana doing a deal to bring him back in. Once you start undermining the coach in that way, you're asking for a whole lot of trouble. And that's what it's kind of building to be.
Rigobert Song was asked about Onana playing tomorrow, and he says for Andre Onana, we'll see his form to see if he can play. Everything will depend on him. In this situation, Frank, you don't really want Onana coming out and saying anything, do you? Because it's not going to help.
Of course it's not. The coach already made his decision, and I agree with Shaka. I think that's the problem with some countries in this tournament, where some people are deciders where they shouldn't. They should let the coach deciding. And I think it was from Rigobert Song very clear that Onana is number 2, and he shouldn't play for Manchester United. He shouldn't come and take the private jet, and he shouldn't make any comment, especially a comment that doesn't mean anything, because he says two things completely opposite. That the country comes first, but I want to play for Manchester United and come the last time, at the last moment. So yeah, don't say anything, because otherwise you're gonna put everybody in the middle of something that we don't want to go, because it doesn't help the team to grow, the team to be united. It doesn't help anybody, especially your position. And this position is not clear. It doesn't make it clear. It doesn't help the coach to make it clear. So it's not useful.
Would you start him tomorrow, Shay? It looks like he will start.
I'll be honest. If it were me, if I were in charge of Cameroon, I wouldn't have him in the squad. Not what happened in 2022. I simply wouldn't. But again, I think this is more about Cameroonian FA officials getting into a conversation with Onana, because they believe he's the best right. goalkeeper. And you could certainly make that argument, given the level that he's playing at, wanting him in the squad. But successful teams, it takes a lot more than the best 11 players. It takes everybody buying into whatever the coach is selling, everybody kind of having each other's backs. And once you walk out on a team once, I'm not sure how you mend those bridges. And if I'm the coach and you walk out of my team, you're not coming back. you can change coach and come back in, fine.
Right.
But if I'm the coach, if I'm still the coach, I'm not having you back.
And you know, it smacks of a sort of one rule for one and a different rule for others sort of mentality. And when you've got the other players in the squad who are there preparing for it, and he's off doing what he's doing for Man United and getting dispensation to do so, and then walks him back in, making big statements as if he's the big cheese of the whole scenario. Don't worry, everything's fine, lads, I'm back. It just doesn't sit well about, and particularly not with preparation. Preparation is huge, and you want everybody there, right? You want everybody there before it. You want to get everybody, and you want to get a sense of you know, form and how everybody's gelling. And it's such a big tournament. It's not like it's some small thing for the African countries. This is huge for them. And so I'm just a believer that whether he's either in the squad or he was out the squad. And once he was in the squad, whether we agree with that or not, he doesn't play in that game. He's there. He's building up to this competition like the rest of his teammates. And then Rigobert Song decides then if he's the number one.
Are you all right? You kind of
Not really.
got to finish.
I'll be honest.
Napoli 1, Barcelona 1, then is how it finished. For more on this, we welcome in a couple of Frenchmen. Frank Leboeuf and Julien Laurent join us.
It's so bad. I was mumbling to myself there.
We heard you. About yourself. We can hear you mumbling.
I was thinking about it. Well, that's a point share, and I've just lost track of it. Today's Champions League games. Off the back, what was yesterday?
Yesterday was Dortmund, PSV.
Oh my God, what a week!
So,
what a week! I'm just a week late in taking my holiday. I should have taken 2 weeks. Should have taken it now.
Right.
I mean, I suppose that game we were that was the main focus we had on, and the middle screen and all our tellies, because we thought, right, you know, two teams struggling. Napoli 9th, Barca, we know, as we cover La Liga every week, have really been struggling, particularly defensively. You thought, right, Napoli can get at them. This is going to be quite an exciting game, and particularly because Barcelona don't defend particularly well. But although Barcelona controlled the bulk of it, particularly in the first half, it was hard, man. It's just hard to watch these teams. I mean, this is a Napoli side. Yeah, they've had all these changes, and they lost Kim to Bayern Munich. They've obviously changed manager, but they won the league last year. Yeah. They were one of the best teams in Europe to watch, and Barcelona the same. They won the league. They were playing exciting football. How the mighty have fallen here. It was just really, I thought personally, quite a poor game.
Yeah, Frank, it was quite a good example as to why both these teams are struggling domestically this season.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And I was Craig with that. You know, I was really bored in front of the TV. I was watching at the same time Porto Arsenal, and we talk about it after. But yeah, it wasn't a Champions League game. And I'm with Craig. You know, what happened to Napoli since last season? And that team was offensively very good, direct, and full of imagination. We saw almost nothing from them. It was a little bit better for Barca, but at the end of the day, yeah, you watch that and say, you wait for Tuesdays and Wednesday of Champions League to have top games in Europe and maybe in the world, and you see that. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the first of La Liga last year, first of the Calcio last season, and you see that. It's appalling. Really, it's appalling. I don't know if because of what, because of whom, but really, it's not what we expect.
Overall, Jules, so Barca will take the draw back to Catalonia in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think they'd be kind of happy with that, really, to be honest. I mean, I think the fact that Napoli had 0 shot, not just on target, just 0 shot in the first half at home in a Champions League match, I think sums up very well what we saw today in this game. It was just not good. I guess Barcelona would be disappointed by the way they defended on that goal. Inigo Martinez on Osimhen, whether I think Frank thinks there's a foul from Osimhen on Inigo, but he should not dive in like Craig said, and probably that defensive line should be a bit higher up anyway, at least on the edge of the box, not Inigo Martinez inside his own box. But apart from that, there was just not much, certainly not enough in a game of two clubs of this calibre.
I think if you're Barcelona, though, and you touched on it there, the way they've been playing, it's not a bad job, really. I mean, we've watched them a lot, and they've been poor. A lot of people won't necessarily watch the Liga and think, well, it's Barcelona, but you know what's going on? They've been awful, right? They've been pretty awful, and defensively they've been all over the place. Xavi's leaving at the end of the season. There's been rumblings with experienced players. And I think they get on the plane and go back to Spain and go, do you know what? We'll take that. Because whenever Xavi puts a team on the field this season, I think he has the jitters about, oh my God, this could be 3 or 4. I mean, Granada scored 3 against him. Villarreal scored 5 against him. We talked about this yesterday. At the Montjuic, at home, they have been cannon fodder for almost everybody in terms of giving chances up. And so I think he, at the moment, walks out of almost every ground, Dan, if he's kept it quite tight and they're in the game or they've got a positive result and goes, well, that's a bonus because the press are not going to nail me tomorrow. Yeah. And that's kind of how it feels with him and his team, is that they're always one disaster away from ultimately John Laporta replacing him before the end of the season. And that might happen if Napoli go to the Montjuic and win, which on tonight's evidence seems very unlikely.
What percentage chance then of these two teams of going through?
Well, I think I would go for Barcelona. I mean, they showed during the first half, even if it was poor, that they're much better than Napoli. And we saw almost nothing from Napoli except that goal. And maybe they pushed a little bit at the end of the first half for 5 minutes and at the end of the game. But I see Barca much stronger, and I really think that they're going to finish the job.
What's percentage, Frank?
Sorry very much. 80-20.
Wow, blimmin' heck. That's annoying. George?
I go 60-40 Barca. It's just you don't know what to expect of either of those two teams. They're capable of much better than what we saw tonight. They also can produce another game like tonight. I do think, Frank, that Barca is slightly better. But at least the only thing we can say is that the new Napoli manager, Calzona, will have 3 more weeks to work with that team. He's only had 1 training session before tonight's game. So that's not ideal. So at least maybe he will have a bit more time to put his input into this squad and this team. And then we might see a better Napoli. But I still would go for Barca.
I'm kind of 60-40 Barca, but hedging more even to 55-45. I think it's close. And I tell you why. They've not looked any more solid Barca at home than they have away from home. And I tell you, if you have to question, will Napoli be as bad in the second leg? Maybe they will be. But if they score first and punch this Barca team in the nose, we've seen it, they'll crumble. Yeah. They'll absolutely crumble. So I think it's still Barca's, but it is very close.
He just keeps giving us absolute layups when he keeps talking about the right direction.
I'm absolutely... This guy needs to see a shrink. You know, what direction is he seeing? I mean, how many times have we sat here and talked about Manchester United, and he's talking about injuries? Every team said injuries. Look at Liverpool. They're a much better side with a much better manager, but they've coped. Look at Tottenham. Tottenham had Sarr was out, Basuma was out, Son was away, the whole back line was out. There was 4 fullbacks playing across the back line. 4 fullbacks. Lost Harry Kane in the summer. Postecoglou goes in. They play great football. They're going for the top 4 and have a realistic chance of getting it because they have a purpose. They have a manager who understands what he wants, and they understand what he's all about. This guy, do you need... And by the way, Anthony's not been injured, but he's been hopeless, and he sanctioned it, right? He's not been injured long term. Bournemouth, Fulham, there's been others. You know, Nottingham Forest. Do you need a fully fit squad to beat and outplay these teams? No, you do not. And so there is no excuse for the type of football they've played, for the results they've got, and the way they approached that game last week. I know you guys were doing it. I wasn't here. They got battered. They were outplayed by Fulham the week before. They were outplayed by Luton in victory. I mean, come on. Any of us are looking at this. Ratcliffe, Brailsford, whoever the damn it is, they're clever people, they're business people, they're looking and listening to this and going, this guy does not know what he's doing.
The only thing he can be doing is try to convince them.
Well, he's unconvincing by this rhetoric.
I mean, Man City had no Haaland or De Bruyne for 2 months. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's not always about just because you're losing. It's about how you lose. Yeah. And they've been unbelievably bad. When they've won, they've been bad. And when they've lost, they've been bad. So basically all season, they've been bad regardless. So who's supposed to believe any of this when you're unwatchable? Because when we're putting it on, and I can't wait to put it on, because they're so bad that you're just waiting. You're waiting for a calamity.
Well, anti-Manchester United, Stevie.
But I don't think I'm alone. I think most people are putting on Manchester United thinking, wow, who are they playing today? Are they going to be rubbish again? Are they going to get beat? Because that's all they've been serving up.
When I'm watching
unwatchable football,
when
right?
I'm watching Man United, this current version, taking a Diego Dallo special goal at Sheffield United to win, taking a Bruno Fernandes sublime volley at Burnley to win, against the run of play. When I'm watching this, I'm sitting baffled. How, even with injuries, how can this manager take this football club to play against what is effectively cannon fodder in the Premier League, down the bottom, and be outplayed? Everybody can get beat. Defeat happens. But if they had gone and you said, look at United, they've played some great stuff there.
Yeah.
But, they've been undone at the back and they're making mistakes, but my God, they're playing some good stuff. I could accept that, because you can remedy that. You can't remedy this manager anyway, been outplayed by most of the teams in the bottom half of the Premier League as they have been. That's unacceptable.
It's why, Jules, this right direction narrative is such a head scratcher.
But one, I think, is pure desperation from him to start with. But you have to see in the way that every press conference, every time he speaks, for him, he knows he's under pressure. He knows right now he's more likely to get sacked in the summer than to keep his job. So I think every time he sees a microphone, he thinks, I need to say something that's going to convince Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Dave Bradford, Jean-Claude Blanc, the Glazers, their mum and dad, anybody, that I'm actually doing a good job. So he lies. He lies to himself. He lies to everybody. I mean, what got me today, I think the best line of all is like, if I had a fully fit squad, I would have won 75 of my 100 games. Easy. Where's that coming from? What about 100 out of 100? It's just mad. And I think he thinks that he's helping himself, but actually it's the other way around. If you're Sir Jim Ratcliffe and watching this like us, or reading the quotes or whatever, you're not happy. You can't be happy. Because this is not the reality, like the boys have explained. And trust me, Ratcliffe, Brailsford, or everyone can see it. It looks like the only one that can't see it or doesn't want to see it is Ten Hag.
Jules, how can he be deluded enough to think that this will work?
I guess he really wants to keep his job, which I can understand in a way. But the best way of doing that is that for that team to improve, this team to play better, to win more games, whether it's injuries or not. He said like, I don't want to complain here. But every time he talks about all those injuries all the time, and he's complaining and he's whinging. So the best thing he would have to do is just shush and then focus on the pitch and try to improve this team between now and the end of the season. And that will be the only thing that could keep him in the job, is that all the things he says, that's actually doing him more disservice than anything else.
The only thing, well, one of the things, when we talked about this, but one of the things that might keep him, and I don't think it will, but, I'm throwing some sort of olive branch of an opportunity, is that if there's nobody glaring out there that they can get, are they going to be stuck with this guy? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't imagine, even if it's costing them a fortune to get rid of, they're going to do it, because why would you spend, $1.25 billion plus on a football club to invest in it, and then spend on infrastructure, and then bring in directors of football, if you're not, if it's 10 to 15 million to get rid of another manager, it's pocket change for Sir Jim Ratcliffe with a long-term vision. So the only thing saving them to me would be that they just can't find anybody to come in and do this job. But even that is a stretch.
There's nothing saving this guy.
But what's interesting is, like, we talked about Barcelona and the injuries that they have. You look at Gavi and Pedri and De Jong, proper players. And you look at the injury list of Manchester United, Rasmus Højlund's been good, he's been fine. But it just doesn't resonate that if you have all these players back fit, that you're going to see anything really different than we have this season from Manchester United.
Well, it's because of the way he's setting them up. There's no... We can talk about how much of the blame lies on the players and how much on the coach. Yes, you can blame players who make mistakes or pick the wrong options or don't perform. Yes. But at the end of the day, listen, we're talking about Barcelona. as bad as they've been, they're trying to play football, and it's not working. Now, you can sort of accept that. I mean, look at Liverpool. We're a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Look how they're set up. They're trying to go forward. They're trying to play football. They're basically saying, we're Barcelona. This is how we play on the front foot. We're Liverpool. We play on the front foot. Tottenham, we play on the front foot. Ten Hag saying, regardless of who's playing, we're going to keep it tight and then try and break. I mean, that is 100% not the Man United way of playing.
Even against Fulham, a scoop ball over the top for Marcus Rashford was their out ball. That's kind of where they were, you know, and certainly in the City game it was slim pickings. Look, Shaw's been a bit of a miss for them. Maybe Martinez at the back to a certain extent on the left-hand side. But we're also talking about a manager who, during this season, has decided that, you know, a 36-year-old who was only training with the club in the summer was a better option than a World Cup winner who's won everything in the game in Raphael Varane. So there's decisions that have been made in terms of the playing squad as well that have been head-scratching, you know, playing full-backs out of position and whatnot. It's not a perfect science. It's not an easy job. We know that. But there is no doubt that he's met some headwinds here, big time. And he's struggling. I'm with Stevie. I don't see him lasting past the summer.
No, it's dead man.
There's no culture. There's no culture at Man United.
No.
None.
It's going to be a big couple of seasons, you feel, of overhaul there. Jules, what are you doing this weekend? Where you go? Are you going to go to Anfield? Pop up there?
No, I'm not. I'm not actually going. I'm doing one of the Serie A games tomorrow for the website, and then Sunday I'll just be watching the game.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Gab won't go. He doesn't go north of Watford, does he? Nathan, we heard Rob Palmer talk about Ten Hag's body language on the touchline. And, of course, managers can play up to the cameras. What did you make of his reaction or lack of it when he found United very much on the back foot?
I think, to be honest, for him, usually, if he had a good squad available, he'd be turning around towards the bench and thinking, well, this is the person I'm going to bring on to be able to do this. But I think they were filling quite a few seats on that bench with people who were essentially just available. He didn't have enough people to be coming on to probably take off the people who he thinks deserve to be taken off. And that feeling there as a manager on the side of, like, helplessness. Yes, like, we can look at his reign in totality, but as he's standing there, I think he would be disgusted by that performance. But again, the more senior players that he has available are all on the field. He'd be hoping that they'd be able to sort of stem the flow that Coventry had and just find a way to get through the game in those key moments. And for him, as I say, he can talk to them, but is that going to change anything? He could try and look on the bench to change something. Are we going to bring on an 18-year-old or 19-year-old to replace someone senior? It's probably the last thing that this moment needed. So I think that was a picture of a man that is essentially helpless and thinking to himself, like, what, unfortunately, in my opinion, what have I signed up for? Because this is nothing that he's probably ever expected to see.
He, of course, spoke in his press conference ahead of this, saying, look at my squad over the 100-plus games that I've been in charge here. I think I've had a full squad once to choose from. Does that offer him up any sort of excuses? No. As Nadem says, when you're looking at the bench and there's just nothing, you can't go for anything there.
No, they're playing Coventry City here in the Championship. I'm not offering up any excuses for this man. It's far from ideal, but show me a manager who's always got a full squad and I'll show you a liar. You know what I mean? It's part and parcel of the game. Again, they're playing a Championship side, being dominated by a Championship side, hanging on for long periods. It's just unacceptable. Yes, they're in a cup final. He's a dead man walking in this job. Yeah. Dead. You don't spend 1.25 billion plus to see this garbage. You don't. You don't spend that to see a manager standing with his hands in his pockets, literally doing nothing. When Coventry got it back to 3-1, right, who, by the way, they made a change at half-time in terms of going from a back five to a back four, which is more in line with what they do in the Championship, and they were much better. But when they get it to 3-1 back, after United scored against the running play, which the Fernandes goal was, somebody has to put their foot on the ball with a red jersey and say, you're barely going to have another sniff of this football. Never mind near our box. You just completely throttle this team that don't have as good of players, that don't have the quality, that are not used to playing in big stadiums like this at Wembley in a semi-final, and you just suffocate the life out of them. No, it's exactly the opposite happened. They're open and they allow this team to look like. If you if you were watching this game from 45 minutes onwards and you just flicked the old channel on and went, oh, bit of soccer game on here, and I mean this, you would not have known there's one of the biggest clubs in the world who spend a fortune with a manager who has a reputation that's got him this job from Ajax, Erik ten Hag, and all these players. You would not have known that one team was spending millions and millions and the other side were almost out of business a few years ago and scrapping away in the Championship. Now, if that doesn't tell you, and by the way, United have won this game.
Yeah, I know.
They're in the final. But if that doesn't tell you where they are as a club, and it's not an isolated incident. This is not anything isolated. We're looking at a bigger picture here. This is knockout football. Anything can happen, right? It's not how you gauge the long-term vision. And we're looking at a bigger picture here from a Manchester United perspective. That's unsustainable. You've heard me say that in the show many, many times, the FC show. This is unsustainable. To continue to be dominated by the weaker teams in English football is unsustainable as a long-term vision. And that is the problem that Erik ten Hag has.
But today at Old Trafford, it was not only us sitting there doing the analysis of the game. There was this thing in the stands as well. They were nearly going at him. You know, they were going for him. And then he did something. To be fair to him, it couldn't get worse, to be said. But he got a bit better. They didn't challenge him too much. Thank God for him. But it was like the crowd was getting at him. And I think that I'm not saying that he will leave in the summer, because if you leave, you have to give him a Lamborghini to drive from Old Trafford away. But there was a feeling today, this was the end of Casemiro. His legs are gone lately. It seems that his body language is not good at all. So it's this kind of thing that is so sad when you see, it's like a boxer at the last game. You know we will end up at the floor. You know, and that was the feeling in Old Trafford today.
A lot of injuries, of course, for Manchester United going into this tie. Hence, Casemiro was playing at centre-back. This is what Ten Hag had to say about the injuries and how it is affecting his team's performance. He came out and said, well, basically, it's like trying to swim with your hands tied behind your back. Jules, do you have any empathy for him?
No, not at all. I understand the injury situation. We've said it before many times. He had Cambuala on the bench, who is a proper centre-back. Didn't choose to play him. He had Lisandro Martinez, who wanted to play in this game today, so he could be ready for the FA Cup final. Didn't want to play him. So, okay, Casemiro plays there. He doesn't want to play there. He told Ten Hag already. Ten Hag insists to playing him there. And Casemiro doesn't even want to be at United anyway right now. So I don't think he likes Ten Hag either. I don't think they just get... Yeah, who does? You're right. I don't think he gets on. He just wants to still be fit for the Copa America, go with Brazil and never come back ever again to Manchester. So let's see where that goes, because like Craig said, there's still a long way to go on his contract. So I understand it's an issue, of course, when you've got all the centre-backs out. I'm not denying that, of course. But again, when they had the ball and when they were trying to attack, you don't need centre-backs to attack, do you? And you're, apart from Bruno Fernandes, who was not here today, of course, which is a big miss, but most of your other forwards have been fit for most of the season, and yet you're one of the worst attacks in the league, certainly amongst the big clubs. You're the worst at expected goals. You're the worst at chances created. So, like, I can take the injury excuse to a certain point, but it's not the only reason why they've been so bad this season. On course for their worst ever Premier League season.
It's every facet of the pitch, even the goalkeeper. You know, we showed those saves today. I mean, come on. We used to we'd say those saves were for the back page. You know, the cameras were flicking. I mean, my God, the way that he threw himself at them, it was like...
He makes it up, mate. That's a little
No,
bit
I'll
harsh.
give you the one from Dallo, not from Dallo. I'll give you the one from Martinelli.
Martinelli.
Was a good save. Some of the other ones, though, were for the camera boys behind the goals. Look, when you get to Casemiro's age, what you need when you go to your club is people around you that are going to mask your issues. They're going to help the situation. They're going to make it easier for you. And what United are doing, this United team, for every player, is showing their deficiencies. Whatever player goes in, your deficiencies have been exposed more and more because of the weakness of this side. If Casemiro goes into a good side, the legs don't look as bad. The body language is obviously different. you can get round that. You cannot get round it in this United side because every functioning part of the team is dysfunctional.
Should we read some of these? 1 win in their last 8 Premier League games, 14 Premier League losses this season. That's the most since 1990. 8th in the Premier League table. They've never finished lower than 7th. Before the Premier League, 1990 in Division 1 was their lowest finish. They currently have a -4 goal difference. That's their worst goal difference since 1974. And to rub salt into the wound, Jan, we of course saw the finish Santiago Bernabeu this week. An amazing stadium. So many great new stadiums around Europe and beyond. And then you've got those pictures of the end of that waterfall falling through the Old Trafford roof. And I suppose what a great symbol of how this great club is crumbling, not only on the pitch, but off it.
It was amazing. It was like someone had planned it. It was like Sir Jim Ratcliffe had planned the leak just to show this is ground zero. We start here. It can't get worse. It can't get worse. He even talked to gods. It was like unbelievable. And again, I won't name drop too much Jaap Stam because Jaap Stam, I talked to him and I said to him, talk me through why you think Ten Hag is the right man. Mind you, they both are from Holland. I know when Solskjaer was manager, I like a Norwegian. You know, I understand that. But my last question to Jaap Stam was, if you go to Sir Jim Ratcliffe and he says, Jaap Stam, you used to be a legend in this club. Give me 2 reasons why I should go on this stand with this manager. To be fair, Jaap Stam went in with his Dutch connections and all that. Said the same again. They were in a final, winning a final, getting into FA Cup final. But I mean, the roof, the leaking. That was in what do you say? Niagara Falls. Niagara, thank you. Falls in the stadium. If people went into the press zone afterwards, they were soaking wet, and we were just like thinking, "This is Old Trafford, 2024. I played against Class of '92. I played against Cantona, and look at this Manchester United team. This is where they are, and they are all totally wet."
By the way, it's got one of the worst press rooms in all the Premier League clubs as well. It's almost like a disdain that the press shouldn't actually even, you guys are lucky to be here. Here's the slop.
Right.
Here's the beef stew from 3 weeks ago. You horrible lot, have that. It's like the whole thing. I mean, it's been like it was like that, 12 years ago when I was still going. It's not like this roof leaking was some big surprise today. It's been leaking for over a couple of years now.
Okay, always
Mark, and here's the deal. If you've got a reeking roof. Calm
down, they're not his real teeth. Come on.
If you've got a leaking roof and you live in Barcelona, it's not a problem. Or such a problem. If you've got a leaking roof, hard for me to say, and you live in Manchester, guess what? It rains an awful lot in Manchester. But not just at the training ground.
They were so lucky, Craig.
Well, that guy, Bellingham, saved Southgate's bacon. There's no doubt about it. The knives are probably still out, but they were sharpened somewhat, as every journalist had to rewrite their piece because it was they were going to get slammed. You don't say this very often about a team in a quarter-final, this was a magnificent piece of skill, and we covering La Liga every week have seen this from Jude Bellingham, even in games like this Euros where he's been quiet. And England have been poor, and even at times when Real Madrid have been poor, he has done the most amazing things and it's why he's one of the stars, the young stars of the modern game. But England, although they're in the quarter-final, have been embarrassingly poor performances in every game. Poor tactics, poor team selection, poor substitutions. And I include the ones that he got away with today. I mean, no changes at half-time. What? Really? Cole Palmer comes on. I get that, 66 minutes. Eze, 84. Ivan Toney, 93 and a half.
Yep.
And by the way, he'll say, well, that was okay. It worked for me, but come on. So, England... Again, this is not a Scottish angle. This is an honest angle. I repeat myself, if it wasn't for this easy pathway thus far, and I give Slovakia a lot of credit, but they're 40-odd places behind in the FIFA rankings. They're very limited. I give them so much credit. But if it wasn't for this pathway, England would be out, because thus far in this competition, they have been garbage.
Well, they haven't been garbage at making other teams look much better than them. We saw it again with Slovenia, Slovakia, Denmark, second half Serbia. Yeah. It's again and again. It's the same slow, lethargic play. No connection in the final third. That Bellingham shot was their first on target. That sums it all up.
It's kind of hard to figure out where to start. And I guess you've got to start with the manager. You know, the fact that he went with his tried and trusted at the start of the game was, OK, I get it. I understand it. The group stages were horrible, but it's a different ball game, different animal. As Craig said, to be that bad in the first half and to come back out in the start of the second with no changes is absolutely scary. I'm sorry. That is not acceptable. You know, you've had 3.5 games to get some rhythm, to get some form, to get some chances, to get some goals, and you've come up blank again, but you keep it the way it is. I mean, Southgate, really. And if I can fast forward to extra time, when they go ahead at extra time, the one thing that they've been guilty of, England, when they've gone ahead, since Southgate was there, is drop in way too deep. Now, that's when the manager has to be on the sideline screaming at them to get up. Right. You don't need to have done all your coaching badges to figure that one out. But where was he? He sat in his chair, just letting it all happen. And they're all sat in the edge of the box. And there was a couple of close calls just because they're sitting in their own box. I mean, listen, they're through. It's to do with Jude Bellingham. For me, I guess it's 50-50. Southgate's been terrible. His players have been terrible. As bad as the decision Southgate's made, the players have been as bad, except Bellingham.
Just quickly before the boys react, I sort of skipped that interview that we ran at the top. Bellingham, what game is he talking about? Frankie?
You don't see the same game.
I mean, I'll give them their due. England, they've got the siege mentality, you know, more than about everybody, and seeing this was a great. They've got this they've fixed the bayonet and gone. You're saying we're playing badly? We're playing really well. That was incredible.
Now, as you said, it's coming from a French guy, but it's an honest answer about what I saw today. I was so surprised by the poverty of their football. And Jude Bellingham wasn't at the level that we used to see him. So everybody's going to forget, because the bicycle goal and the fact that he saved a nation with that goal is going to erase everything. And everybody for a decade is going to see that goal, this beautiful goal. But otherwise, I didn't see anything that I wanted to see. I wanted to see a reaction from that team that you want to go on the knockout stages. And again, it could have been worse. On the goal of Trent, and he scored, Gay makes a foul, and if he falls, it's a penalty and a second yellow card, therefore a red card for Gay, and it's a total different game and different ball game. And everything I saw, every time I saw, passing the minutes of the game, that England couldn't go there.
No.
And Slovakia, I would have been upset if I was a Slovakian supporter. I say, you were fantastic for 94 minutes. Why you couldn't hold 1 minute more, you know? But that's football. That's the beauty of football. And special players, sometimes they do special actions. And Bellingham and then Kane showed it to the world. But otherwise, that's so poor. I don't see them going through if they keep on working like that.
I suppose the other point, the other changing thing that could have changed the game was that, I can't remember exactly when it was in the second half.
Is that the long shot?
The long shot. And I think that summed England up, was the free kick was taken and they're just completely on a different page, whoever it was, I can't remember, and Pickford is out. And I think that kind of sums England up. That should have been a goal. It was a catastrophic free kick, and it's kind of where they are and where they've been. They're all over the place.
It was 94 minutes and 34 seconds into the game. That's the latest regulation Euro goal by an Englishman. 21 years, 1 day, is the youngest Englishman to score in the knockout stages. We've seen 6 stoppage time goals this season from Bellingham for club and country. And don't forget as well the Valencia one, which got chalked off, which shouldn't have been either, when the ref blew the whistle for full time. And as I mentioned, that goal was England's first shot of the match. Jules, I promise I'll come to you in a minute. I just want to get it from an ex-professional's point of view. Is that why you leave Jude Bellingham on, despite the fact he did nothing in the game? Because someone like that with that skill can produce that sort of moment?
Absolutely. Listen, generally, I think Gareth Southgate's lucky because generally, the question you're asking, usually a team has a couple of players who, unless they've lost a leg, they have to stay on because you know, as bad as they've been, as much as they may not have been in the game, you know you need a goal from nothing. And you need players that can do that. And actually, if there's one thing you can say about England, they've actually got more than Jude Bellingham. And when I say that about players that can produce something from nothing. So he's lucky, you know, we say it all the time. It doesn't matter how good or how bad you are, but if you've got some quality, you can always pull it out. And if you ever want an example of that, you've just seen it today.
What were you going to give him, 2 out of 10 before he scored?
Oh, no, I was ready to give him a 2, between 2 or 3. And I was talking with Louise, the producer of today's show, and she texted me, said, what do you want to give him, 2? I said, well, not anymore because he scored at that time.
Yes, yeah.
I say, nobody's going to care about my mark right now. It's going to be a 10 out of 10 because he saved a nation and everything is going to be, as I said, erased by his magnificent bicycle kick. And that's crazy. That's football. That's the beauty of football. It's what I like about it. The surprise is, even if you are bad, at some point you can be the hero. So from 0, let's say, or 2 or 3 to hero. But that's Jude Bellingham. I mean, throughout the season, we saw many times where he disappeared.
Yes.
And he wasn't the Bellingham of the beginning of the season. But by some special thing, because he's a special player, he comes back to the front page.
We watched the Clásicos together, Craig. We were laughing, weren't we, when we saw him score those goals, obviously, at Montjuic against Barcelona, because he's kind of writing his own fairy tale here.
Yeah, particularly in the first 6 months of the season or so, and then he obviously, you know, had a little period where he went a little bit flat for him, which was to be expected. But England haven't found a way to get him influence in the game, or Foden, or Saka, or Harry Kane, any of them. They haven't found a balance that's been able to get them really influencing the game for long periods, for sustained periods where they've got the opposition on the back foot for 10 and 15-minute periods where they can't get out. Like we see Man City doing, Real Madrid, Arsenal this season, where we've seen them play at home against, you know, mid-table, mediocre Premier League teams and they can't get a touch. Well, England have played mediocre countries and yet we're in a scenario where they're allowing these teams to look good. And it's on the man. I think it's on the manager. I really do. I think it's his approach, it's his tactics, it's his team selection, and there's no way they should be allowing the amount of pressure that they've been put under by the likes of the teams that they've played.
Jules, the thing that frustrates England fans, obviously, that today wasn't an anomaly. This is expected now with England to play this badly.
Yeah, and we didn't have to wait for today to know that Southgate is useless. You know, as a head coach, that those players don't know how to play, don't know how to build up their faces, don't know how to press, they don't know any of that. But this is not new, like you said. We've seen that through this whole tournament. I really thought today they would improve. I really thought to start Mainu, for example, was the start of something better. And actually, we can even argue that this was maybe the worst first half in this tournament, even worse than what we've seen so far. And the only thing I think maybe is the most important now is that they cannot be in denial. Because that Jude Bellingham interview that we played, he's just lying completely. He's lying to himself, he's lying to us, to the fans, because this is not the reality. This is not the truth. They didn't play well today. They didn't control anything, really. Yes, they had a lot of the ball, but they had 0 shot on target until his goal. They didn't create anything. There was, again, no structure in their play. There was just nothing. We hardly saw Foden passing the ball to one of the other attackers. Saka was poor. Bellingham was poor. Kane was terrible. Even defensively, where before we could have said, okay, maybe this is the only positive so far. Defensively, they were shocking tonight. Shocking. I mean, Walker on the right-hand side, the Slovakians kept going. It was like the freeway. It was just ridiculous. So as long as they're not in denial, and they are objective on how bad they've been today, and it's a miracle, really, that they've qualified, I'm okay with it.
It's this point in the show that I have to shoehorn Manchester United in again.
Oh, wow. Oh, there we are, 13 minutes in. There we
What
are.
a surprise.
There we go.
Oh, well,
Cristiano Ronaldo as well for the...
Well, no, the reason I do that is I think the buck here stops with the manager. Yeah. England manager, who is in the England job and has done reasonably well with where he's taken them, but again, I think there's reasons for that. He was allegedly Ineos's main man to take over one of the biggest clubs on the planet, one of the biggest jobs, one of the most difficult jobs. Gareth Southgate, identified by Ineos. If you're a Man United fan watching this, that's telling you, like, I don't think they've got many more brains than the Glazers when it comes to picking people. Because Southgate at the end of this game said, in a couple of interviews, I never felt we were going to lose this game. 93, you never, what?
Did you really?
Yes. He said, I just always had a feeling we were going to get back in.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you had the feeling.
Did you see the video of the England fans that actually left?
Yeah,
that
had left. Yeah, they could hear the roar.
They just had enough. Well, you know, I'm
What does it tell you about Southgate that he didn't make any changes at half-time?
Wow.
He's lost.
Do you think he's scared? Like,
yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he's gone, right, I took Kane and Foden and Saka off, but it was quite deep and it didn't really mean that much. But this is a knockout. Do I take off one of that four? Or do I wonder if he just didn't want to make a change. Because I can't see any other reason.
You keep a player because you think that at some point he's going to do something special. That's
right.
We were talking about Bellingham. I think that Saka, at some point, or Foden, would have done something. But we saw throughout the game and throughout the previous game that it doesn't happen. And players like Palmer can take over and be better. So why do you hesitate? Is that because you're incompetent or because you don't see it or because you're scared? I don't know. Maybe the former coach can tell us, but I was amazed. You know what? I can compare with Didier Deschamps. You can say whatever you want about the way he makes his team play, but that's the way he wants them to play, and he has no fear whatsoever to change anybody if he doesn't feel.
The worst thing that's going to happen in this tournament, I think, is England to go deep, real deep now.
Oh, Switzerland will beat them.
And everybody, no, and I say this because I don't mean this badly on Southgate, but the people will come out and say, "Wow, you know, this is a great job." It's not. It's not. England for me, it's a bit. England for me are a side that if they're well, I'm not saying they're the best side in Europe. I'm not saying that because they have problematic areas. But if they were better coached by a real quality manager, I think they would be certainly playing a lot better than this and making the games a lot easier.
100%.
And I kind of worry a little bit that it'll be papered over again if they get to like they have a Euro Championships final, a World Cup semi-final, where, by the way, for the sake of repeating myself, Dalic at Croatia completely outflanked him in that game, and he was left, Gareth Southgate, with his coaches staring into the abyss, didn't know how to change it. And I just think we will be papering over a multitude of cracks within the way he goes about it if England go deep.
Here's the thing, to go back to your question. Sometimes you actually ask a question there really isn't an answer to.
Why he didn't make changes at half-time?
Because not just that. You've asked about 3 or 4 questions already in the space of, 17 minutes, where everybody's dumbfounded and we can't... You know, you're asking, what's Gareth Southgate's thinking? What an impossible question that is. All the things that we've said are all things that we're looking at a game thinking, he's got to change it. Why is he doing that? Right. Why would you not do this? Why? I mean, it is just question after question after question. So to try and get inside this guy's head and think why he does or doesn't do things is almost impossible. That's how far away from the so-called top coaches that this guy really is.
It's interesting, though, it's not just him. The players are substandard.
Absolutely.
You look at Harry Kane's performance in the 90 minutes, obviously didn't do much, had that header 8 foot wide, obviously then scores at the start of extra time. But it's players like that, surely your captain, your leader on the pitch, that you need to be that driving force.
They should, but it seems to be lost.
Right.
They don't know what to do. They don't know how to react. And there is a mix of feelings when you are one down, where, you know, you want to go for it, but you know that you have to be patient. But at the same time, you have the anxiety throughout the minutes and the minutes going on. So you have to use your experience and make sure that you have the captain, but also the skipper, meaning the coach of the team, who tells you what to do. Because it is what it is. You know, the coach, as you mentioned before, he has to tell you, okay, guys, we play higher, like 10 years higher on the field, and you make sure that you go on the side, and the message goes quickly. But it seems to be that you have no messages because he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
And players, they've tried stuff, they're not good, so they have their responsibilities, and they're in the middle of the park. They are in the middle of the battle, so sometimes it's hard to think through and to see clearly the game. So they need that help by the coach, and well, obviously they don't have it.
So many people that stuff Frank was talking about there about when you're on the field, you know, you need to take care of things that are happening at the time that go against maybe what you've been told. But to have so many players who look as though they're lost is why you don't get any reaction at all on the field. And that is down to the manager. The manager, yes, he has to pick the right team and he has to get the tactics, but he also has to get everybody in a frame of mind to go and succeed. And every single time that England have stepped on the field, they haven't had that. And more importantly, any time that it's gone wrong, when you're looking for something to happen, nothing seems to happen.
Has Kane changed his game in this Euros?
Do you think he's fit?
How many times have we seen
He's not right, is he? Clearly.
He's not fit.
Well, how many times have we seen him? We saw it once today. Well, at least once. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, because there's been a lot of games. When he dropped a little deeper and he played that great ball, the switch he played for Trippier, that Foden scored, he was offside. That's kind of what we expect sometimes from Harry Kane, or a lot from Harry Kane. It was a great ball, came short, switched to play. Slovakia was stretched. Foden was brain dead. He just had to hold his run. He stepped offside. But how many times have we seen Harry Kane do that during games? I don't remember him doing it a lot. Now, sometimes he does it a little bit too much, and you think, right, you don't need to come that deep. But quite a lot of times for Spurs, for Bayern, for England, he's dropped it a little bit deeper. Centre-halves don't know whether to come with him or not. And then he gets on the ball, he gets turned, or if a centre-half comes with him, there's a space for somebody to get in. I don't really remember him doing that. Now, it might be because Bellingham's playing as the number 10. I don't know, but...
Do you think it's possible that he puts a pressure on himself because, you know, he went from Spurs to Bayern, never won anything. He didn't win the title in Bundesliga with Bayern. He knows that they are the favourites, so he wants to win, therefore puts a pressure on himself as a captain, therefore loses his football a little bit. Is that possible or not?
I don't know. You played, Frank.
Well, I've never been in that position,
but I tell you what, Frank. I tell you what we do know, Frank, is England players are smarting from any criticism that comes their way.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
It's not just Kane. There's Bellingham's been talking in press conference about pylons, he called it. Pylon. We know there's going to be a pylon. We know there's pressure. Listen, and so what that's telling me is that there's a lot of media talk behind the scenes. And listen, they're always, you know, we always talk about press, guys. Oh, Johnny so-and-so gave me a 3 out of 10. But you don't make it a big story. And I feel that England, behind the scenes, are kind of, I feel it's eating away at them, that people have the audacity to question them.
Yeah, and Jules, this is the weird thing when you hear English players talk. As Craig said, Jude Bellingham said there's pile-on against us after the group stages. There's a pile-on against the Italians. There's a pile-on against the German performer. This isn't unique to... People aren't more critical in England than they are anywhere else in Europe, yet it seems that the English are smarting more from it than anyone else.
I don't know what planet they live on, really. And we go back to what I was saying earlier about being in denial or, you know, lying to yourself in a way. Because if you... And I think we said it the other day on the show as well. This is not the Care Bear world. You're a professional football player. This is always going to come. You're never going to win every single game in your career. This is not possible. There will be times where the critics are out because you're just not good individually, collectively. Your team is not doing well. Your coach is bad. All of that. The boys have gone through it. Everybody, every player is going to go through it at some point in his career. And maybe in previous tournaments, which, by the way, Bellingham hasn't played many, but for the others, maybe because things were a bit better, semi-final, final, okay, quarter-final in Qatar, against the French. But so maybe the critics were not as heavy as this because this has been by far the worst tournament since Euro 2016, really. And today it felt very much like the Iceland of 2016. That was Slovakia today. Yep. For 30 seconds at the end, this is it. This is exactly the same scenario. It's the same game. Hodgson is like Southgate. And this is it, really. And we go back all that 8 years ago, really. So I'm not sure where planet they're coming from.
If you want a pile on, you should have gone to Buenos Aires for 10 years before they won the World Cup. Messi was getting, and there was only one guy. The one guy was getting most of it, if not all of it. I mean, that's a proper pile on.
Yes.
You know that particularly what the South American guys were getting with the pressure down there, Brazil, Argentina, so forth and so forth. That's before you even get to countries that are way more successful than England: France, Germany, Italy, and all these others. So it's almost like an entitlement. I do feel that some of these players feel entitled. And that's strange because most of them, it would seem, the clubs are down-to-earth, kind of, rounded guys. But it seems this tournament is almost like an entitlement about, listen, just let us do and don't criticise us. And actually, it's not a good look.
Is that message coming for the staff? Because as players, we'll listen to Bellingham talking nonsense about how well they played, but he can't actually believe that. And as players, you don't play at this level unless you understand when you're doing okay or you're not. And when you're not doing okay and you get pelters, that doesn't upset you because you know you're not doing well. It's when you're actually doing well and people are criticising you, then it's like, hold on a second, why are you criticising? Not when you're playing like this. But if they don't understand how bad they are, where's that coming from? Is it the staff? Keep telling them that, listen, don't worry. We've heard Southgate in particular. Every time he's been on, he said how difficult it is to beat anybody in international football. Yeah. So if he's firing that message on all the time, is it in their head? Are they thinking, oh, this is hard, why are they going to go at us?
So you've got 6 days now to prepare for Switzerland.
Oh, get a dartboard.
We know...
Get your dartboard out, get all the players' names, put it on into a dart, throw it at the board.
We know that Gay's not on the board, obviously, he's suspended. There'll be one change.
Konza, Gomez or Dunk.
There's no reason, from what we've seen, that Southgate will do anything else but put out that same team.
That's a worry, isn't it?
Well, it wouldn't be a surprise, though. It wouldn't be a
So, probably going to be the same front four.
Yep.
Unless he does play Bukayo Saka at left back or left wing back, he might change the shape. I don't know. No idea. I would think Mina would play with Declan Rice. I don't think there's much debate about that.
Rightfully, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And not blaming this on any of the youngsters with limited experience. But even before this tournament started, talking about Luke Shaw maybe being fit for this game, who's not played since February. Mm-hmm. What kind of mindset is that? And you go, Luke, You've not played, you've had a few training sessions, go and play in the quarterfinals of a Euros. That kind of talk, it's almost like saying, yeah, the rest of them, not very good, going to play this guy. But this talk about the media against us is just a complete no-no. The media would be splattering all the greatest stuff on the planet if England play great and win this thing. They're out for, when you play badly, they're out for a headline. And England are giving them certainly enough ammunition at the moment. But Stevie and I talked about the Italy-Switzerland game, how we didn't believe Italy are a very good side, and I think that was shown. They're absolutely bang average. Switzerland are no world beaters, but they've got good game nous, good understanding of game awareness. And at the moment, I still would fancy the way the Swiss are playing over the way the English are playing.
Yeah, if it wasn't England on the name and you saw these 4 games, they haven't got a chance.
No, of course they're not. And if they play like that, they won't have a chance against the Swiss because, as you mentioned, Craig, they're very solid. They know exactly where they go. They have a tactic, and the coach is very influential in that matter. And so far, they've been perfect. I mean, close to perfect. They've done what they had to do, what everybody was expecting, which is far away from the English squad. So, I see England. Yesterday, I said in my prediction that England will go to the final. But because I really thought, like everybody else, they're going to wake up. Like Jules said, today it's going to be a knockout stages. It's different than the group stages, but I didn't see that. And so I don't see them going through against the Swiss if they carry on like that.
Unless he makes changes.
But he's not going to.
Well, they're not going through then.
Well, isn't it? That's it. Like, why?
Well, we're back to where we
what have we
started.
seen?
We're back to where we started.
Exactly.
Is he going to go again with Saka on one side and Foden on the other?
Of course he is.
That has not worked at all. That's 4 games on the trot. That it's not only not worked, it's been atrocious.
Yeah.
And as bad as most of them have been, there's no way you can't There's no way you start the next game without Cole Palmer. He came on.
We're going back to half time.
He looked like
we're almost back
he looked as though he was in a different league.
If you don't
to
make
the rest
changes
of them.
at half time after that first half, you're never going to make changes.
So there's no way he wasn't making changes.
There
was no way. It was like, right. It was actually quite intriguing, wasn't it, to sit and go, right, I wonder who it's going to be.
And then Ian Dart goes, no changing.
Even Ian went, well, I can't believe it. But, you know, look, it's not just, this is the from England perspective, it's not just that this magnificently talented front line, and it is not functioning properly at the back.
Yeah.
So even Slovakia, who again, I use the phrase limited, and they are, they took their goal well. How many balls were they able to fizz across that 6-yard box, particularly in the first half, even in injury time and extra time, they were still a threat, crosses into the box. You know, this England defence, it looks wobbly as well. And then people say, well, the defensive record in this competition thus far has been pretty good, and it has, but again, you know, when the opposition are not offering up too much, you're going to look better than you are. So I think his problems are absolutely at both ends of the field.
Spain, once again, champions of Europe, defeated England by 2-1 in the final in Berlin. It was a poor first half, lacking any sort of quality. But then Spain would take the lead early on in the second half, which is quite something considering they lost Rodri at half-time. England then would bring on more of an attacking lineup. Cole Palmer would get the equaliser, but Urasabat in the end, after a great ball in from Cucurella, would score the winner as Spain are champions once again, breaking England's hearts. Right then, there we go. I think we can all agree the best team won.
Yeah, I mean, not just the best team today, the best team all throughout the competition.
Football won. Football won. We have to be wider than that.
There's a couple of Englishmen here, and one of them is very raw.
I know, I think I'm all right, actually.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not bad. Look, if we were the better team and lost because of a break or a mistake, but in this scenario, I think anyone can watch that game and say, yeah, Spain were the better team, they created the better chances, and therefore they deserve the trophy.
And again, it's one of the things we talked about, if we look at England briefly, was just this dull, negative, not getting the best out of some world-class players going forward, and got away with it in a lot of games, did not today. Came to life when they had to, with the substitution, but then sat back again.
Yeah.
And let's be quite frank about this. Spain scored 2 wonderful goals, and I mean brilliant goals, but it could have been 3 or 4. Dani Olmo missed a very good chance. Lamine Yamal missed a couple. And also, Spain lost, you could argue, the best midfielder in Europe at half-time in Rodri.
Yeah.
So they were absolutely brilliant and thoroughly deserved it.
Yeah, most definitely, as we've seen throughout this whole tournament.
I don't, you're completely right, and you know, people you speak to on the phone, nobody can disagree with you. No one can disagree with the assumption that Spain have been the best team during the tournament. They were the better team today. They made the better chances, albeit England had a really good chance, which was cleared off the line right at the very end. But that was down to kick, hope, panic stations. Spain could have been 2-3 up. England started the second half really poorly. Spain, losing Rodri, started it on, electrically, made really good chances. The first goal was beautiful. The winner was a lovely goal as well. And I said all along, if England's performances haven't been good enough and they needed to buck the trend today, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And the best team in the whole tournament carried on in the same vein that they have, won the 7th game on the trot, scored goals like they have done, defended really stoutly, and have lifted the trophy.
It's why I say football won, because that's not against the English. No, it's not against the English. It's against all the other teams, and France included. Especially France, we didn't show anything. And the 2 favourites were England and France. And we can say that overall, we are very disappointed with all performances they had. And in the contrary, Spain, for 7 games, they kept the tactic that they had, the way that they wanted to play. I think they should have killed the game earlier. And Dani Olmo had a big chance, and after Lamine Yamal also. But overall, they tried to play vertical. They were very positive in their thoughts. When they scored the first goal, they kept the team very high. Everything was perfect in their side. And now we can say that England didn't play. They played like they had to go forward because they conceded the goal, because they were losing. And as soon as they score, they dropped.
England
crazy.
All the guys that play at their clubs that are used to having possession of the ball, right? Foden, Kane, Saka, Bellingham, Rice. They're all playing. I mean, you watch any of the teams that they play for: Arsenal, Real Madrid, Man City, Bayern Munich. They dominate. They dominate games. They pass the ball, and yet these guys come into this England side, and you're telling me all of a sudden they can't retain possession of the ball? Yeah. This is down to, and I know international football's a little different, but that's not down to the fact that tactically and talent-wise they can't do it, because they're some of the best players in Europe. It comes down to the approach. And there might be a bit of a pile-on with Harry Kane, because he's clearly been off his game in this tournament. But England can't use that as an excuse, because the Spanish have won that without a guy who's, one of the best, really. Morata's not. He does a job. Yeah. But he's not a brilliant striker. They've done it because other facets of the team have been excellent. The two guys in the middle of the park for most of the tournament, Fabian Ruiz and Rodri, just want to get on the ball and boss the games. And Danny Olmo wants to do a bit of both. He wants to get back, work his backside off and help them, and then get up and make himself a threat at the other end. And the two youngsters, pace, width, and they want to start. The first thing they want to do, Williams and Lamau, is take the ball and turn and go forward. England at this tournament too happy to go back the way.
And the best example is, and I'm going to Gary Southgate, Cole Palmer. How come that player didn't play before? Southgate needed like 10 to 15 minutes to make the substitution with Cole Palmer, with Ollie Watkins, and to put the urgency onto the pitch. That's something unbearable for me, because Cole Palmer should have played from start.
But explain this part to me. Once Cole Palmer scores, we were saying, go for it now. Go for that second goal. Yeah. Why? Gareth Southgate's not on the touchline saying, get back, go deep.
I exclude him on that matter, because it's only up to the players.
That's the players?
Yeah, that's the players.
But these are all players who, as Craig said, top-level players playing for big clubs. Psychologically, why does that happen?
I can't even answer, because we see that Spain scoring a goal, as I explained just before, staying up on the field, very high on the field, where England, they scored the goal, say, okay, we're going to go to penalties. That's crazy. They are the only one who can say why they do that, because they have the psychological.
They have the momentum.
They have the momentum. And when they score the goal, so you're above Spain, and you allow Spain to come back to heal from the problem and finish you. That's impossible. In football, you cannot do that. And especially from experienced player, as you said, who knows exactly what it is to have the ball and to make the others suffer. Didn't happen.
What is it, 7 games to win the tournament?
Yes.
England have had, a good 45 minutes against a very average Holland side. And they hung in this first half today. It wasn't a great first half. In fact, England had the only shot on target, which was Phil Foden.
Yeah, the first half wasn't very good.
But still, they were outplayed in the first half. It wasn't brilliant, but they were completely torn apart in the second half. I mean, some of the Spanish football, it's not 2010, 2008 or 2012, for sure. That's a difficult mantle to follow. But some of the football was terrific, wasn't it? I mean, Cucurella's not playing regular at his club. You've got 2 centre-halves, one of them in Saudi Arabia. Got 2 youngsters up in the wide positions, but they've been just so good to watch. And you talk about you can't put things on Gareth Southgate. I think you can with this coach.
But what about what I was trying to
think you can with the Spanish
What about them
coach?
dropping off when they get the equaliser?
Dan, I think that's just psychological, and everybody does it. You get back into the game, and then your first instinct is to defend what you have. And England getting back into the game 1-1. They've suddenly just gone, right, we're back in the game, let's just defend. Let's just get drop and let's just defend. It's wrong, of course it's wrong, because you are on top of the game. Crowds are on your side. We've got the majority, England's had the majority of the crowd today. So you should have tried to put your foot to the metal and get after Spain. But I understand, because we've all played in games when you're leading and you're holding on for dear lives at the end and you're just trying to get over the line. I've played in games like that myself.
Steve, allow me to jump on that matter. why Southgate doesn't go almost on the field and say, "Oh, guys, come on!"
Well, at times he did. In his defence, at times he was telling them to push up. But sometimes when you're getting outplayed and the ball's getting popped around you, you just sort of go, well, I've closed down once, I've closed down twice, and the ball's gone past me. So now I'm not going to go. I'm just going to stand. I'm just going to sit in a shape. And that's what's happened. And when you're playing against the best, you know, Lamine Yamal got best young player of the tournament. Rodri got player of the tournament. The Spanish have just dominated this tournament right the way through. And sometimes you just hold your hands up and say, you know, England tried to close the game down in the first half. They tried to make it ugly, and to a certain extent they did, because Spain were not great in the first half. But in the 15 minutes of the second half, Spain got a little kick up the backside by the manager or whoever's given the kick up the backside, and they come out like a different team. First goal was beautiful.
Yeah, let's talk through that first goal. Obviously, it started with Carvajal.
Yes. Ball to Carvajal, and the outside of the ball, the flick with the outside of his right boot into the path of Lamine Yamal, who played Nico Williams in. And then Nico Williams finished it really, really well for a young man with limited experience. Kept his eye on the ball, and it was a lovely goal. And then they made another chance, and then another chance, and another chance. Danny almost should have scored, should have been the leading goal scorer, but he pulled his shot wide. And the writing was on the wall then for England.
And we will start by talking about Chelsea, who've been in action. Not that it was too easy to see. Against Servette, the Swiss side, it was the first leg of their Europa Conference League playoff. It was a game that they won 2-0 with both goals coming in the second half. Christopher Nkunku scoring a penalty in the 50th and Noni Madueke scoring in the 76th minute as well. Frank Leboeuf did have an eye on this game and joins us now to talk about it.
Oh, an eye on it?
He did.
It was on in France?
Frank was watching it in France.
It was on in France? It wasn't even on in England? That's how bad it was.
Yep.
It wasn't even on in England.
Frank gets
Couldn't
special
find
treatment. Maybe Chelsea gave him a special link.
It was like a maze trying to find this game.
It was Chelsea TV.
Frank, it was on in France.
Yeah, it was on in France, surprisingly, and I watched that game and another game. I watched Lens also on Canal Plus. I had the chance. I don't know if it's a chance, especially the first half. That was much of a nightmare, of a punishment. You know, I would say. Even the fans were very bored, and they booed the players half time, and it's only because of the first goal, from Nkunku and the penalty, that Chelsea seemed to be better. Just after, you know, Maresca started to make some changes, substitution, and before Madueke's goal in the 75th minute, we had the chance to see Guyu missing the unmissable, and I think it's going to be on X forever. And it's sad for the young guy, but he did very well counter the goalkeeper, and he just had to put the ball in, and again, that was an incredible miss. And then after Madueke scored the goal, I have to say that the fan before the second goal, where some fans were keeping on booing the team because they were so slow. I mean, it's Chelsea positioning the ball for the sake of it, not to create anything, just for keeping the ball and not losing it, not taking any risk. And it was nice to see Palmer in the middle of the park, really, but as a number 10, that was nice to see him there. And but I would say it's a good win for Chelsea, but the way they played is, of course, not convincing yet.
Thank God we're not in France.
We're not in France.
If we were in France, we couldn't have said, "Oh, we can't see it." We'd had to watch it, Stevie. I mean, Chelsea v Servette. Who wouldn't want to watch? Well, the problems.
We heard about Cole Palmer there. He did actually come off looking like he was wincing, holding the back of his thigh.
We winced every time we come off.
Enzo Maresca has said that, you know, he's been looked at, he's okay, and he hopes that he'll be available. He's looking likely to be available for Sunday, so not too much of a concern there when it does come to Cole Palmer. But yesterday we were talking about Enzo Maresca and the huge squad that basically Chelsea have got to deal with. He's pretty much said it's not the mess that you would think it is. He says, I'm not working with 42 players, I'm working with 21 players. The others are training apart, I don't see them. They can even have 20 years contract. It's not my point, I don't care.
Where are they? Doesn't see them, where are they? I mean, I get it. You've always got I'm not going to use the terminology that we used to use for those that were not training with the main squad. But there's always maybe 3 or 4. Maybe, would you say that, Stevie? Maybe more, half a dozen at most, maybe 3 or 4.
Usually 3 or 4 who are just on the out.
Just on the out of training with the first team squad, and they're sort of doing their own thing with the reserves or the youngsters or whatever it is.
The Sour Grapes gang, we used to call them.
But having... But here we have a squad, and he is right. You will be training with a certain number that's manageable. But there are still 20-plus guys hovering around, annoyed, you know, angry and frustrated, and, you know, why am I not training with the first team? You know, nobody likes to train away from the main group because it's the main group that are preparing for all the big level stuff. That's where it is. That's where your day-to-day stuff is. So if you're over there, and unless there's a separate training ground for those particular people, which I don't think there is, then you're seeing them every day, and they're part of it every day. They're not part of the sessions, but they're part of coming in, they're part of going for their breakfast or their lunch after, having a cup of tea, and they chat to players, and they talk. That's what players do. Players talk in the mornings and at training, and when there's 3 or 4 unhappy, it's easier to manage than when there's 50% of the squad.
There'll be 21 players talking, and there'll be 21 other players moaning. I mean, that's basically what you'll have. And every one of those 21 that's moaning will be away over in the corner somewhere watching what's going on over there and not really training properly, even if they're lucky enough to be there. Because as far as we know, there are 2 or 3 who are supposedly at home, Raheem Sterling being the main one, who are training away from the whole place. I mean, and he's trying to convince or tell us that he doesn't know what's going on and has nothing to do with it. Well, again, how bad is that when the head coach has got 21 players who are his players and he's telling them, I don't know you, I don't even know what you're doing, it's not affecting me. Custard pie. I mean, the atmosphere in the place must be horrendous. Horrendous.
And yet they're still able to bring new signings in, Frank. You must know, like, you know, some players are seeing this, they know the situation it is there, and still they come to Chelsea. Would it not put you off if you were looking for a new club to go to and you knew that this was going on?
Well, it's complicated for both sides, you know. When you are a player and you don't play, when you're a player and you play, but you know, when if your teammate is not with you. I mean, I was a captain of Marseille, and I remember having to deal with that kind of things where some players were, as we say, in a cupboard, and the coach doesn't want to open the door and then breathe a little bit. And you know them, you see them. You don't see them at the training session because, of course, they managed to put them apart. But when I was a new player. I came for Chelsea, and I knew that 2 or 3 players were in the squad. I said, where are they? Oh, they're not training with us. I said, that's not fair. That's disrespectful. So we have to do something. And I remember one player, Jérôme Leroy, was belonging to those players aside. And I thought he was a good player. And I worked with the coach to allow him to come back. And he came back. And he helped us a lot. And he signed for Paris Saint-Germain and beat us the year after with Paris Saint-Germain when we play at home. So there is a conflict there, a disrespect there, and it's only because you were too greedy of getting too many players, disappointed by the performances of some of them, and then the coach has to make a choice. And it's bad for everybody. Again, the new signing coming, seeing that, it's not nice because you are feeling a bit unbalanced. For the atmosphere, it's not nice for anybody because, of course, as Stevie said, the players are talking between each other, so they have to deal with that. And Maresca overlining it, saying, I don't care about the 20 others. Oh my God, that's the end of it. It's going to be a nightmare. Imagine, do you think Sterling's going to shut up? Do you think some others are going to shut up? No, they're going to talk. Sorry.
It's a different ballgame for him now, isn't it? He's managing one of the biggest clubs, one of the clubs with the major eyes on them because of all this stuff going on, because of their certainly recent history over the last 25, 30 years, where they've had a lot of success. And there's a press conference probably almost every day, and he's going to be getting questions that he's never had before. He's going to have eyes on him that he's never had before. Let's be honest about it. When Enzo Maresca got the Leicester job, Leicester fans were going, who? I know he's been coaching, I know he's been around, and I know he was helping Guardiola, and I know he coached in Italy. And his management experience is not great. But even Leicester fans are going, I've never heard of this guy. Did well for a year. All of a sudden, he's in the Chelsea job, right? By hook and a crook, he's in it. And this is just a different level. And it's not his fault. Why wouldn't you take it? Big payday, might be successful, might get the sack. I'm a winner either way. Why wouldn't you take it? But he's in this position now where he has to give reasonable answers to not look stupid to these questions about a squad that's really nothing to do with him. And now he's another one that's having to manage this situation. He's not one to upset the bosses. He's not going to be a Tuchel or a Pochettino because I don't think he's strong enough to maybe throw some darts back at ownership and recruitment. So I think he's going to try and play ball there. And that could make him look, and it could make him vulnerable to ridicule. So he's in quite a difficult position, and it's going to be interesting to see how he manages it. Of course, listen, if they win games, it's going to be pretty easy for him. But if they don't, and they struggle, he's going to get it from every angle.
Because you said it from his perspective there, from a manager's perspective, and why he would take that. But why would a player go to Chelsea right now, knowing all this is happening?
Well, if you're a really big player, you could... well, I don't know. I mean, I suppose if they offer us to go somewhere else, Stevie, you probably do. But if you're a really big player, you know you're going to go there and play. You're not going to be part of this shambles, and it's the money. I don't know. It's.
You don't think anybody looking at that is going to think, I see that's going on, but it's not going to happen to me. I mean, that's kind of your thought. I mean, anybody who is going to a new club for a significant amount of money with significant wages, you know, in your head, you go, well, they're bringing me in to play. I don't know what's happened with these other guys, but they're bringing me in to play. So that's how that's how the players will be thinking.
Chelsea football.
They won't be thinking I'm going to end up being Raheem Sterling training at home, or one of the Sour Grapes gang 21 who are away over in the corner. They think that they're going to be one of those 21. And they're going to be, never mind the 21, they're going to be in the starting 11. So they're just signing the paper. Give me the money, sign the paper, right, when do we start? That's what's going on inside the player's brain.
Chelsea Football Club at the moment is to the Premier League what Saudi Arabia is at the moment to world football. It's the bank. They are the bank. They are the Saudis in England. They are the bank, right? You roll in with your agent. You get yourself a big packet, and you get yourself a long contract, and then you might play, you might be successful, you might not, but they're all getting paid. None of these guys, we just saw the graphic, any of them coming for free? Any of them coming for charity? No. Chelsea are the bank of the Premier League at the moment. It can't be sustainable, I don't care. And we can get Gab and the rest of them on to talk about all the finances and the structures. I don't care how long you're giving contracts out. You can't keep bringing in, unless they sell a crazy amount of players and get rid of them to balance it. You can't keep bringing this in when other sides in the Premier League are getting walloped for profit and sustainability. I am absolutely sure the Premier League are looking at this with a magnifying glass. And if they're not, they should be, because on the face of it, you look at it and go, how? How is this possible?
One of the big name players you just mentioned, Stevie, and Raheem Sterling, and Frank, the talks apparently with Aston Villa, and now we're seeing reports that Crystal Palace as well could be the next option for Raheem Sterling. What do you think of this situation with him and Chelsea trying to move him on?
Well, if he can go, he has to go, because there is no chance that he would play for Chelsea anymore. That has been cleared by and explained by the board, I guess, and the coach. I'm very surprised. I have to say, I don't know what Aston Villa is trying to do. After Joao Felix, now they try to get Raheem Sterling. I'm not convinced. I don't know where Raheem Sterling can rebound in his career, and I wish him the best, because I always want the best for the players. But really, what I've seen the past 3 years has been so far away from the Raheem Sterling that we have known and I've seen performed. So I don't know if he can help out, Aston Villa to get better. I doubt about it. I'm not sure he can regain his fitness and his confidence. I'm surprised that Aston Villa is looking for getting a deal with him.
What do you think?
Why would you sign Raheem Sterling?
Why wouldn't you?
Oh, that's easy. I've got loads of answers for that. Why would? Well, I'll tell you why you wouldn't, because last year he was horrendous. He wasn't particularly great in his last season with Man City. He's come to a team as an experienced player amongst a bunch of young guys. What a perfect situation to enhance your reputation by not only producing on the field, but helping all these other younger players coming in. I mean, that's what they want. That's what they need. And what did he do? Nothing. Nothing. If you're Aston Villa, if you're Aston Villa...
He got double digits in goals, lad. I mean...
He was horrendous. Come on, let's be honest.
I get it, but that's Raheem.
He was horrendous.
Can we see that? 1 second.
And if you're Aston Villa... Hey,
stick that graphic up again.
If you're Aston Villa... Right. If I'm Aston Villa, as soon as this comes along and it's 325 grand a week, never mind what you're going to have to shell out to buy him, if I'm Aston Villa, first of all, I'm going, hold on a minute. A couple of years ago, we made this mistake with a guy called Coutinho. Gave him the crown jewels, paid him a fortune, paid a fee for him, and it was an absolute bust. When his CV should have told you that this is the perfect guy for this team. It's Coutinho all over again. You're going to give a guy like him 325,000 when he hasn't kicked the ball properly, in my opinion, for a good 18 months, and he's coming out with statements that kind of makes him look like Billy Big Time. I mean, why would you sign this guy? Would you sign him?
Well, I wouldn't on that money. What I would say, he was not Chelsea's worst performer last year. I mean, to be fair to him.
Well, that's
no,
that's a low bar, by the way.
And he was never, ever, ever going to reach the heights he did at Manchester City because he was on the wane in terms of getting older, and he was playing with poorer players. So when you put those things together, and his inconsistencies that we saw as a youngster at Liverpool started to come back. It was almost like nobody was there kicking him up the backside like Guardiola was about his end product. Because his end product when he was a kid coming through, not surprisingly, was pretty bad. And he improved that greatly at City. He wasn't perfect in the final third, but he improved it. And we saw a lot of the old Raheem Sterling creeping back into the Chelsea performances, just in front of goal. Sometimes you're going, how the hell did he not even hit the target there? And that's the worrying thing. He was not, by a long shot, their worst performer. I wouldn't, to answer Stevie's question, I wouldn't be going out unless it was some incentivised deal that if he did not perform, I was not shelling out those big bucks, then I would be happy to do something like that if it was a performance-based salary and contract, because that's in a perfect scenario for the club. The trouble is, a lot of the players won't sign up for these, and they sort of strong-arm clubs into giving them, and some of them do, this big money. The other side of it is, unless there's a personality thing as well, and in some sense I can see where Sterling's coming from. I don't believe in the statements and all that. But if I look at some of these Chelsea players that are reportedly now going to be playing before him, I think I'd be scratching my head as well. I will tell you one that played today, and obviously we didn't see the game, but unless he's somehow engaged a brain over the last 3 or 4 months, Mikhailo Mudryk. Mikhailo Mudryk, big money, big wages, up to this moment in time. If we're talking about Raheem Sterling not producing anything, and OK, we may give him some time as being a younger player, but he's been absolutely hopeless in his period there. And yet it seems Sterling, maybe on bigger money, I know all that, but is the one that's being pushed out. And that's where players sometimes go, hey, what about him? And what about him? Sometimes it falls on deaf ears.
I 100% agree with you about the incentive.
If you're going to
take him.
Right.
But there's a problem to that, though.
Nobody wants to do it.
Well, why would he do it? He's got 3 years left.
Yeah.
He's got 3 years left on 325 grand a week. Why would Raheem Sterling put himself in that position when he can sit and have a cup of tea every morning and watch them training and playing every Saturday?
Because he loves football.
And still get his money.
Well,
he doesn't strike me as a guy that loves
football. We had this conversation the other day, and the thing is, that's where Chelsea have to come back to the table. And I've seen these things happen where listen, we want you to go. But the player can say, well, listen, I don't give a toss what you want. I have a contract here. You're not strong-arming me. So this club, I want to go and play for Club X, but Club X is offering me a third of my salary. They're incentivising the rest, so there's no guarantee. You're going to have to cough up X amount in my remainder of my contract. If you do that, Chelsea Football Club, I will go to this club. If you don't, I might stay and have a cup of tea and piss a few people off, as Stevie says. So this is where Chelsea are in a scenario where you're not always the big boss. Just because you're the big cheese and you're a billionaire and you own the club, it doesn't. People have contracts, and so this is where this is all going to have to be figured out. Unless Raheem Sterling's all of a sudden say, as Frankie says, I love the game. I'm going to take a 70% wage cut and go and play. How many players are going to go and do that?
Yeah.
Unlikely.
Frank?
Yeah, unlikely, and it's sad. And I completely agree with you. Of course, there's a situation where you say, no, you know what? I have 3 years contract and I stay, and you pay me or give me some money, and maybe I leave. Like that, I cut my wage in half with the other club, but otherwise I don't move. I understand that. No problem. It's a negotiation. But I know, because now it's over for me, that it's a short-term career, and overall what we love is the game, and because you're, I don't know, 3 million per year, you can be easy in your life after your career with 1 million per year. I mean, we are talking about million. I mean, we work for ESPN now. We want to do something after. We're quite comfortable, and we are like 100 times less than those players. So I'm not trying to find an excuse for them to not willing to play football. You know, cut your wage at 60%. Maybe I live in a fairy tale because you want to play football. Show me that you're a real football player. Don't show me that you are a greedy business guy, and that's all matters. I'm sorry, but yeah, the club is wrong, but the players, if they want to carry on, they will have to make an effort. I mean, I will never sign a Raheem Sterling right now with the wage that he has, even if I'm tense on the table and I need somebody was supposedly his talent before. I mean, we saw the graphic. It's not only when he signed for Chelsea that he was bad. The 2 years before, that was half of his goals, half of his assists comparing to the other years. It's why Guardiola got rid of him. And Chelsea paid him 2 awful years, and now Aston Villa wants him. I mean, this world is getting crazy. Crazy.
That's a lovely Disney movie Frank's talking about there. Where the player loves the game and he's going to sacrifice all his money to play the game. The problem is, Frank, we all understand it now because we're older, and we understand when you're playing, it's never going to end. And everybody tells you that. I remember Mark Lawrenson at Liverpool saying to me, by the way, let me tell you something. I think I was 21 at the time. He said, by the way, enjoy yourself, because very soon it'll be over. And I'm like, what's this guy talking about? You don't think that way. And Raheem Sterling is sitting there going, I'm only 29. I can sit here for 3 years and still play. He's not thinking about all the things that Frank's talking about, because he's playing. He doesn't realise, and you don't realise until you've finished that it is a short career.
And do you know the thing is, we're sitting talking about it as a story, and it is a story, slim pickings and all that, Europa Conference. It's not Kevin De Bruyne, it's not Mo Salah, it's
Europa Conference playoff.
Huh?
Europa Conference playoff.
Not even at the Europa Conference yet.
It sounds exactly what it is.
It's not. and I tell you, I would imagine there's thousands of Chelsea fans. Well, there's more than that, but there's thousands of them. They turn up, and I don't think any of them are talking about whether Raheem Sterling's playing or not. And I think maybe that kind of sums it up as well. About, you know, for Chelsea, this is a financial issue now, and Enzo Maresco maybe a little bit of a headache getting thrown his way every other day or whatever. But I would imagine there is no supporters walking down to Stamford Bridge on a match day saying, wonder if Raheem Sterling's back in the squad today. Because I don't think they think that he's going to make the difference.
This was in the Nations League, then Portugal kicking off their campaign with a victory and taking all 3 points, but it is Cristiano Ronaldo who will dominate the headlines around the world after getting his 900th goal. You take a look, Lionel Messi, his closest compare with 838, some quick maths would suggest that is 62 more than Messi. Pele then with 765, Romario at 756, and Ferenc Puskas at 753. To wax lyrical about Cristiano Ronaldo, we welcome Julien Laurent into the show. No matter your opinion about him, Jules, of course, Messi fans aren't his biggest fans. There are people who absolutely love him. 900 goals, there's no questioning that.
It's incredible, really. And the longevity, of course, to be able to score that many goals, you still have to be at your best for 20 years, and that's what he's done. And it's just incredible to see him, even now, 39, he will be 40 in February, to still be able to score. We talked enough about his Euros and how disappointing this was, and that he was not really at the right level for that kind of competition. Tonight, in a game where Portugal struggled at times, especially in the second half, in terms of balance of their team and conceding chances, even if they ended up winning the game, for him to be in that position, and like Craig said, it's the perfect cross, and you knew, even when Nuno Mendes was about to take that cross, you knew exactly where the ball will end up and that Cristiano would be there, wherever that ball ended up, and he was there, and perfect contact, perfect finish. He scored, of those 900, he would have scored, I don't know, maybe 200 like that. He knew exactly where the ball was going to come and how he would finish it.
It really is some achievement.
No, it's a great achievement, and the career is incredible, like Messi's, and you know, the commitment to turn up and play for your country, the amount of caps he's got, the desire, everything is credible. Incredible. What a player. I cannot say any more about him and Messi in this era. They have been generational talents, incredible. But this is all about numbers. Nothing else. At the Euros, we discussed it. When we got to the knockout stages, he was a passenger. So he's padding all these numbers now and he's turning up for his country. But the World Cup is 2 years away. Is he going to be better or worse? So where is the long-term vision for a guy, for a country, for a manager who's trying to build the next Portugal? Because you're not going to tell me in 2 years' time Ronaldo's going to be a better, fitter, quicker player. He's not. He struggled at the European Championships. He's got all this time in between. He's playing in Saudi. Yes, he's scoring for his country here. But where is the longevity and the decision-making and the forward-thinking of Portugal when we have 2 years to this elite-level World Cup in the United States and some other countries? Where's the vision? I don't get it. So it's just about numbers.
He addressed it, actually. He addressed it after the game when he was talking about the achievement 900 goals and talking about maybe padding out those stats. Here's what he had to say. Portugal winning Euros is equivalent to winning a World Cup. Obviously, he's won the Euros with Portugal. I've already won 2 trophies for Portugal. That I really wanted. I'm not motivated by that. I'm motivated by enjoying football, and the records come naturally, Stevie.
Why would he say that? Why would he say the Euros is the same as the World Cup?
Yes, I'm trying to be more positive about Ronaldo, but I feel this is going to take us in a different direction.
Well, listen. Regardless of what the situation now with Portugal, I don't disagree with anything Craig said right now, but the fact he's got 900 goals just tells you how good he is.
Yeah.
Just tells you that when it comes to the final third of the pitch or the field, he knows exactly what's going on. He understands who's on the ball, where they're going to put it, how it's going to come in, the pace it's going to be at. He understands where to be all the time. I mean, that is just pure football instinct and talent. That's what that is. I think we should just forget about the quote because it doesn't make any sense. How about you just think that 900 times this guy has got himself in the right position, had the composure and the football knowledge to put the ball in the back of the net 900 times. That's frightening.
No, it's incredible, but it doesn't get away.
No, it doesn't.
We should not have a dereliction of duty here to talk about the big picture, which is really Portugal and the multi-level of talent they have, and a manager who didn't have the stomach to make the big decision at the Euros. And Ronaldo, as the Euros went on, was a passenger. But that's undeniable.
That's not his fault.
Well, I know
it's not his fault if the guy's doesn't have the gumption to drop him. So he's just going to keep scoring goals when he gets the chance, and then eventually somebody is going to say, thanks very much, but it's time. But until then, he's just going to keep scoring.
So I have no interest. I really, the records are incredible. I don't decry anything he's done. I've sat back, we've all sat back for 10 to 15 years watching him going, well, I remember saying once, will we ever see, him and Messi, by the way, will we ever see performances and numbers like this again? I don't think Mbappe or any of the other ones will get there. I don't. Not on a yearly basis that they churned it out. Every year. Every year. And that is fact. But the bigger picture is, he scores in the qualifiers and the friendlies, he scores in the Nations League, and the numbers go up and he's turning it. That's great. But the big story here, the big picture here is, we have a manager who's basically, at the moment, going to be leading the line at the World Cup in America. What age will he be then? Jules will probably know better than me. 38, so what will he be in the World Cup, Jules?
He'll be 41.
My God, he'll be 41. So we're saying the manager of Portugal, who have got all this talent level, and don't have a guy of Cristiano Ronaldo's talent when he was in his 20s and his early 30s, but are we really saying he's going to lead the line for this country at 41 in America, and that's the way Roberto Martinez is going to go? Is that really?
Well, everything points in that direction, doesn't it? What we've seen in the Euros, what we've seen of Martinez.
And everything points to Portugal getting knocked out again, and we put a sledgehammer over Roberto Martinez's head for making that decision.
Jules, Euro, same in the World Cup. I guess you've got no problem with that?
So, I mean, what Craig said, I think I'm on Craig's side on this. I don't think he should be there. I don't think he would be good enough anymore in 2 years' time in the US for that World Cup. Luis Suarez just announced that he was retiring from international football, and what he said was like, I know in 2 years' time I can't do it at the World Cup. So it's better for me to stop now. There's no point. He could still be playing in qualifiers, in CONMEBOL and those kind of games, but he knows that in 2 years' time it's too far away. He won't be there. And I think it's the same for Cristiano, and it's true. You can score goals tonight, of course, and by the way, 900 goals. That means for 20 years, he scored 45 goals a season. There's some top strikers in their career, they would never get to 45 in one season, let alone 20 of them. So it's remarkable, and we're not taking anything away from Cristiano by saying that this is all good. But right now, as we saw the Euros, it's just not good enough anymore. The World Cup is the best of the best. You play against the best defenders for the best countries, and I don't think he can do anymore. So why keeping him now when you can have 2 years of building your team, if you're Roberto Martinez, building an incredible squad towards the World Cup 2026 and making sure that team will be ready for them to compete, to go and win it, because they will be amongst the favourites. But Cristiano won't be good enough to lead the line there in 2 years' time. We know that already, so why not just saying to him, listen, thank you for everything. You are the most cap ever, the most goals, international goal ever. All of that is amazing. One of the greatest of all time, there's no doubt. But now, I'm Roberto Martinez. I need to build this squad for 2026. And you won't be there. You can't be there then. So let me play... Okay, Gonzalo Ramos is injured now, but let me play Rafael Leao as a 9. Let me do this. Let me try something different. Instead, and we saw it tonight. Yeah, he scored. But apart from the goal, I'm sorry, again, in his whole game, all around, it was not good enough.
I was walking...
You can forget, by the way. You can he will absolutely 100% not be playing in the World Cup.
Why do you say that?
I'll tell you why. Because in the second half, he picked the ball up on the wide area on the halfway line and was on his own and was running with it. My goodness. You know, you do exercises where they put an elastic band on you and you run against the force. The only thing was he didn't have the elastic band on. I mean, he was toiling.
New, is it?
He was toiling. But we're talking about 2 years' time, Dan. There is absolutely no way in 2 years' time he is going to be leading Portugal.
But it's going to have to be his decision, not Martinez's.
Well...
Well, he's got 900 goals.
Well, it can't be. It can't be, because if it's his decision, he's never going to stop. Martinez, between now and then, has to pull the plug. But what? Because he won't be able to. That's the thing. I'm just telling you. I talked about him in the penalty box.
Yeah.
That's a different ball game than playing football. You know,
Sure.
if you're going to close the ball down early from the front players, then you can forget that. I mean, there are so many reasons why he shouldn't be playing, but the fact that he's maybe got that 900th career goal, maybe Martinez is thinking, okay, he's got it. Now's the time. That's what should be happening. But he will not be leading the line. I'll put any money you want on Dan. He will not be leading the line in 2 years' time. He won't.
I'd have much more respect.
He can't run now. So,
well, and that's why you really should be saying to the manager, who doesn't have the gumption, he needs to grow up here, if we're going to be honest with you. I walked by on the way to the studio. He was in press conferences. Brilliant in press conferences, Roberto Martinez. I saw him on the screen. Lapping it up. He'll be lapping it up the usual. What did I say? Hyperbole? Hyperbole.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, lapping it up. He's absolutely brilliant at that. But his job was to take a very good Belgium side further. Would he get a semi-final at one point? But he didn't. It's not what they wanted. He's not got the Portugal job to massage Cristiano Ronaldo's back. He's there to take Portugal further and be better than Fernando Santos had them, who was quite structured in the way that he played his teams and had success. But they want to evolve as a country and a team and go forward. They did not. They did not at the Euros, right? And by continuing to play them, as Julian said, you know, what do international managers moan about? Oh, I never have a chance. I don't have enough time to work with the players. I don't have enough training sessions. I can't work on this. Well, you're not working on anything new. You want to work on something new for 2 years. But why does Ronaldo not just say, listen, look at these numbers. You know, this has been brilliant, but it's a bridge too far. Rather than, I think he'll try and hang on. And as Stevie said, in 2 years' time, he's going to look like he's running in treacle. I mean, he's already struggling. That's normal.
Yeah, very animated on the sidelines as well after that 5-2 win for Manchester United, celebrating the goals. And that's how it stands. Obviously, in cup action, Manchester United marching on to the next round of the competition. Before we do get to the week that it's been there, what were your thoughts on tonight's game, Craig?
What one?
This one.
Oh, I wasn't watching. I wasn't watching that. Good, are you seriously asking me my thoughts on any of these games?
I wasn't going to go too much into it, but we thought...
Well, I'll tell you how much we're going to go into it. Absolutely zero.
Seeing as though we're
there was, again, I say this every time, there was about 7 games on. So, well, you know, they made, how many changes Leicester make? 8 or 9? Well, it was, I suppose, nice for the fans to, A, get rid of the manager who just couldn't cut it, and B, to get some sort of result and wait and see what the club are going to do in terms of Ruben Amorim.
So, Sunday's loss to West Ham, the final straw for Erik ten Hag. What were your thoughts on it all?
Well, it's just the inevitable, isn't it? We've all talked about it for months and months and months. And this Ineos strategy is just bonkers. It's just bizarre. You know, to activate the clause in the contract to renew it for another year or whatever it was, to then bring in players over the summer that sort of would work with him, only to sack him, and then go after the Sporting Lisbon manager, Sporting Club, as it's been reported, who is going to have to come in and have this terrible job of trying to get rid of these players that Ineos brought in the summer. And it goes back to the point we all made, is that why wait? Because all you've done is perpetuate the problem. You sign more players that are not good enough, and now they're on the wage bill. They've been paid relatively big transfer fees for, and the new manager's probably going to come in and go, you know, I don't want Zirkzee, might not want De Ligt, might not want Mazraoui. You've already got the old signings there, Martinez, Malacia from Holland again, Anthony, you know, the list goes on. Agati signed in the summer. I mean, it's just, look, it had to happen, but it's a horrendous strategy from the new financiers of this football club. Supposed to be the brains, supposed to be taking it forward in a new sporting direction. Yes, they don't own it, but they're heavily invested in it. And there's 3 or 4 talking heads all making decisions, but the decision they made in the summer is going to make it even more difficult for whoever comes in. Not less difficult, but that decision they made to keep Ten Hag has now made it more difficult to turn the ship around. But it was something that was going to happen. I mean, they should have won at West Ham at the weekend. West Ham was so bad in the first half, it was scary, but they didn't take their chances. Would that have saved them? Stevie, I don't know. I mean, if they win it... I mean, this is the kind of thing...
It is ironic that they do play well and they do create chances and just can't score goals. So if any performance was better than the previous goodness knows how many, then it's happened after this. Maybe they should just have been rotten from start to finish and he might still be here.
So if we... are we saying...
I mean, that's what the kind of strategy seems like, doesn't it? Let's just make sure we're really rotten and keep them.
If the strategy... If Man United had won at West Ham at the weekend, which they could have done with the chances they created, particularly in the first half, are we saying any else but would we have been even talking about this now? Would Erik ten Hag still be there this week if United had won, say, 2 or 3-0 in London? I think he probably would have been, which tells you, like...
That's why you're questioning
they've
them,
been sitting, waiting, and it's just bonkers.
Aye.
A big job for whoever, obviously a huge job now. A lot of dead wood, to be quite frank with you. Some good players, a lot of dead wood, but for whoever comes in, just a big job.
Let's take a look at Sporting this season then under Ruben Amorim and how they've been faring. Not too bad at all as it stands. They are first in the league, 9 from 9 in the leagues this season, 3 points clear as well, 8th in the UCL table as it stands in the Taça da Liga, semi-final stage, 3rd round of the Taça de Portugal, and in the Portuguese Super Cup. It is runners-up as well. In fact, they played in a League Cup quarter-final against Nacional last night. They won 3-1. Players confront Amorim, that's one of the headlines. I didn't break my word, a quote from the man himself. And Amorim postponing his goodbyes. Yes, he kind of said a lot without saying too much there.
He's going.
Yeah, of course he is. 100% he's going. He's not sitting there smiling and laughing. I mean, look at this. He gets written all over his face. He's going.
It's almost like, does he actually know when and what?
Well,
That's how it felt there.
It feels like there's still some crossing of T's and dotting of I's to happen before he moves. But it's inevitable. Listen, and I understand. A club like Manchester United comes a calling. That doesn't happen very often. Yes, I know he turned down some big approaches last summer. But how many times do you continue to kick that can down the road, thinking, well, maybe I'm not ready just yet? I think had he turned up this opportunity, there'd be even more questions about whether he feels he's right or ready for one of the bigger European clubs. And listen, for as well as he's done for the last couple of seasons, at some point you're going to feel that you've hit the ceiling at Sporting, and that something bigger, that you have to take that opportunity to step into something bigger. And this is a great opportunity. And in all honesty, and I say this a little bit tentatively, you kind of get the feeling that Manchester United are at their rock bottom. So therefore, as a prospective manager, it's a good opportunity for you to come in because you don't think it's going to get a whole lot worse. Again, I say that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, great opportunity and a massive challenge.
If Man United really knew what they were doing, when they were interviewing managers in the summer, which they were, after the cup final win, not even behind Ten Hag's back, relatively publicly, why didn't they, A, go for this guy then, or B, make the offer for the, the contractual payout of 10 million in his contract, the clause, or whatever it is? Mm. Why did they then interview, reportedly, Thomas Tuchel, Pochettino, Roberto De Zerbi, maybe some others? Why didn't they do it in the summer? If this guy's the guy now? Not a lot of it makes sense to me. I'm not saying he's not a good manager. Clearly, he has a good reputation. I mean, I don't watch the Portuguese league. I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry. I don't know. We see a bit of him in the Champions League. He's got a good reputation. Man City are now saying, nah, because the reports were that he was in line along with a few others to be the replacement of Guardiola if he decides he's not going to sign a new contract. And Man City are saying, no, they're kind of stepping aside from that, which is neither here nor there. But he's got a good reputation. But then so did Erik ten Hag.
Yep.
And so did one or two that have gone before him. And what he would be walking into is, not, apart from what some people say, is quite an Erik ten Hag team. A lot of the players, he's got his fingerprints on this current team. Most of the players that have come in, a lot of them have got his fingerprints on them.
The questions are still there about Ineos, as you said, though. because nobody's going to disagree that this guy's a good coach. Everybody knows he can coach. But what is going to happen behind the scenes? Yeah. Is it going to be another Ten Hag situation where they go and let him bring in all Portuguese players from the Portuguese league? Or are they going to say, right, we just want you to do, like a Chelsea, Maresca, what we want you to do is to coach the team and we're going to bring the players. So we don't know what they're going to do because so far, other than it, on the face of it, the first decent decision they've made is signing Amorim. But they've made an awful lot of bad decisions leading up to it.
Here's a few of the things that we are seeing from reports with him. He prefers to play a 3-4-3. He's got a track record with making players better, especially youngsters, with helping them out there. How is that going to set up with a Manchester United side, this Manchester United side, that he would be inheriting?
Well, one or two of the Man United youngsters are already playing better, like Garnacho. And then who was the young boy who played in midfield?
Mena.
Who had been in for a bit. The problem at United is not actually the youngsters, it's the more experienced players. They're the big problem. And how do you get a tune out of Marcus Rashford on a consistent basis? How do you get the right temperament and raise the talent consistency of Bruno Fernandes? We saw Casemiro play really well tonight against this Leicester team, but we know he can't do it these days over a long season in the Premier League. Agathe's still to prove himself since signing, and quite frankly, Matthias de Ligt has looked exactly like he looked at Bayern, if not worse, since he's come in. Luke Shaw's got all these injury issues. He's a very, very good left back, but can never stay fit. The other left back, Malacia, who's come in from Holland, he's also got his injury problems. So there's all these things you've got to deal with, and they're all problems that have materialised through the previous manager. When people say this was not Erik Ten Hag's team, that's nonsense. Nonsense. Most of it was. Not every manager comes in and gets 15 of their new players, but most of it were his players. So that's a big issue for the new guy coming in. And they've let this seep and rot for so long. What are they sitting now? 14th in the Premier League? 14th. It's taken them to sit in 14th before they've embarrassed themselves into making this decision. And now that mountain is even taller and bigger and steeper for them to climb. I mean, it's just... which is why we all sat around when they were playing in the semi-final, when they were playing the final, and we said, look, this is great. Winning an FA Cup, beating Man City, this is all great. But come on, guys, big picture here for this football club going forward. It's not appeasing the fans short term. You know, the blinkered ones that can only see a cup final win, can't see anything else. Erik this, Erik that. The big picture was there. He had to go in the summer. And now it's become such a much more difficult job because they've left it 6 more months, and it's been 6 more months of rot.
200 million,
and more money and more financial sustainability and profit and all these things that they have to adhere to. And what do you think the players are going to do? Oh, yeah, I'll go. No, they're not. They're going to say, oh, I'm on 150 grand a week. I'm on 200 grand a week. Casemiro's got another 2 or 3 years left in his contract. They're not going to go anywhere unless they're compensated.
And Stevie makes a good point. I think this is... Now we see what Ineos was brought in for. Listen, Ten Hag preceded Ineos and their involvement and their investment. Maybe you can question some of the decisions over the summer. You can question, but let's give them a pass in that as they try to...
But 1 second, how can you give them a pass?
No.
How can you bring more players in to work under this manager and then get rid of them?
You hear me out. All I'm saying is they're trying to get the structure of the club right. Again, I question all those signings. I'm with you on that, Craig. But if I'm being very pro in your say, I'm saying, okay, you're trying to get the right backroom staff in, the director of football and everything else in. And to that point, you think about Amorim as manager of Manchester City, it doesn't faze you at all. You feel that may be a fairly seamless transition because of what is going on, because of the infrastructure of that football club, which Manchester United, by all appearance, does not have. And that's a concern with Amorim coming in to Manchester United. Are they set up in a way that gets the best out of him? Because, and Jan made this point yesterday, Ten Hag had a pretty similar CV, albeit in the Eredivisie to Amorim. And you look at how Ajax have capitulated since he left. Yet you look at his performances as manager for Manchester United, and there is nothing to cling to. But again, that was pre-Ineos. So now again, I'm being very pro-Ineos here. You start with a clean slate, with your backroom, with your structure, your infrastructure behind the manager. This is on you now. And there's no hiding. There's no hiding from what you were brought in to do. So let's see where they go from here. But also to Craig's point, you're starting almost from a deficit in that you have a number of players that I'm not sure work. I'm not sure are good enough for where Manchester, good enough for 14th, certainly, but not good enough for a top 4 push. How do you address that in a way that, again, financially feasible, given some of the restrictions and some of the salaries that those players are on?
Mazraoui, De Ligt, Zirkzee, oh my God, Ugarte. Why? Why bother? If you're going to sack him, and you know you were, why bother? Why waste the money? Why tie yourself to these players? It's not like De Ligt, his career was heading up the way. It just wasn't.
Surely you'd have to take from that Ineos was behind those players coming in. Because if they're not, it makes them look even worse. That they've kept a manager who's had an absolute disastrous time in his 2 years previously. You've kept him for some reason, and then you've let him bring in players. So if that's the case, why would things get so much better under this Ineos? Because if that's the decision they've made, to let him go and get more players, a guy who shouldn't be there in the first place, then surely the odds of them actually succeeding eventually have got to be pretty slim, isn't
These players he's worked with, most of them, if not all. These players these players are known to him. So you've got to think that they've said, do you want him? Do you want him? They had to have been still conversing with the manager that they knew was a dead man walking, right? And yet they still went out and spent a couple of $100 million or whatever it was and tied people to big wages. And now the new manager has to come in and go, sit down with Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox and Omar Baradi and Sir Dave Brailsford, who knows how to run a cycling team, by the way, Olympic cycling team, but what's that got to do with a game of football? I don't know. And say, I don't want him and I don't want him. Look, this is not picking on Man United. This is common sense. Yeah. This is just common sense in the summer from business people that I think should have known better. Ineos and all the cronies that go with them.
So if he comes in, where does he start?
No, I think he'll get a better tune out of these players than what Ten Hag got. I mean, they were all mailing it in the end because they knew the manager was getting the sack. But they're not going to get up in amongst. They're not going to bring a coach in. You could have brought Klopp and Guardiola in, right? Both of them. One's manager, one's the assistant. They're still not getting amongst Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City.
And here's the problem that Amorim's going to have. It's one thing for us all to sit here and talk about all the changes that need to be made, which they do. And all of these changes are going to take quite a bit of time. And everybody will look at him coming in and go, well, we understand it's not his team and it's not his players. But in 10, 15 games' time, if he's got a stinking record, nobody's going to be going, oh, this is all he needs a bit of time. Everybody's going to, he's put himself in a spot where he's taken over probably one of the worst times that he could. He probably would have been better off with 10 games left of the season. Then he could come in, see what he's got, figure out who he wants to keep, who he wants to get rid of, how are they going to set up, all of these things. But the fact he's coming in now, with 28 games to go, and he's got a team that nobody wants any other players.
Opponent aside, what was the biggest difference for you between this Real Madrid and the one that we saw midweek against AC Milan, or if you even want to go back, the 4-0 drubbing against Barcelona?
Vinicius, not Mbappe. Vinicius Junior, individual skill. They dominated the game. I talked about Osasuna there. They really had a I mean, they've obviously had a great start to the season, sitting where they are, but they were extremely poor today. Considering, you know, the injuries, Rodrigo goes off, Militao goes off, out for the season, as we've found out. Lucas Vazquez has to go off, and still Osasuna are toothless, absolutely toothless. And once Vinicius gets that goal, and it was a great goal, and then Bellingham scores first goal of the season. They've got the chest puffed out. You know, Freddy Valverde can go back in and play right back. Brahim Diaz can come on. Endrick comes on. You know, everything's rosy. But it was about individual skill. Stevie mentioned it for, you know, Lunin playing the ball out, and you know, the brilliant thing is that Stevie said is that he gets across the defender, and it's the first thing that you sort of teach younger players when they're going through and goal. But once again, it has to be said, for all the good news,
drum roll,
all the good news coming out of Madrid. No back page headlines on Ancelotti. Vinicius not moaning about the Ballon d'Or. It's gone. Kylian Mbappe was once again, and I'm being kind, anonymous.
Yeah, and that's the
absolutely
thing.
Anonymous.
It's not like the games where you've got a player missing chances, getting chances. He's quiet. He's almost non-existent, Stevie.
Bang average. Absolutely bang.
How do you explain a great player going into a great team and being?
And by the way, he played him in the second half as the game went on. He was able to go on the left where he's going to flourish, and he did absolutely nothing.
He doesn't really want to play the 9, right? He always seems to drift out to the left.
Look, this is 100% down to Mbappe. He has to figure out what is going on in his head, because all the things he's doing, you know, the offsides and even the shots that he's taking, he shouldn't be taking them because they're really not on. You know, he's hitting bodies all the time.
What's it? A guy trying too hard?
His brains are like scrambled eggs right now, because there's no other explanation for a guy who is so good, who has so much talent, who generally scores goals for fun, makes it look easy, always seems to be in control. To be this poor is 100% down to what's going on between his ears. And he's the only one that can fix it. Ancelotti can't fix this. You know, Ancelotti's tried everything. He tried him on the left, as Craig said. You know, he's putting him through the middle. He even tried to start with 3 up front with Rodrigo, him and Vinny. I mean, Ancelotti's doing everything he can. This is going to be down to Mbappe, and he needs to get himself sorted out quickly.
And I think the more it turns to Vinicius, like it did in the Dortmund game. Do you remember they were 2-0 down, he come back, he's brilliant. Brilliant. He's, you know, today again, he's almost unplayable at times. Now you get Bellingham getting his first goal of the season, gives him a bit of confidence.
Is that the big takeaway from today? That if you're Ancelotti and you're building this team or think about building it for the future, you're really building around Vinny and not...
Well, you're more reliant. What I'd say at the moment, if my job depended on one player at the moment, and you said to me, you can only play one of them, are you going to lose your job? Mbappe's sitting on the bench.
I mean, we just don't know how Mbappe's going to react to all this, because he's never had to before. He's never had to come back from something like this. I mean, even Vinny. Look at Vinny. Vinny, a couple of seasons ago, when Benzema was still in Madrid, we're talking about why is Benzema saying don't pass the ball to Vinny. So Vinny's had all these tests and come through it, and look at him. You know, could have, should have, maybe would have won the Ballon d'Or. Mbappe, on the other hand, has never been through anything like this at all. He's always been the blue-eyed boy. Everybody's always catered to him. Everything's always come easy for him, even though he's talented and no, he's probably, listen, you don't get the way you are unless you're mentally strong. But as I said, he's never had a roadblock in front of him that he's had to manoeuvre around or over. And we don't know whether he's going to be able to do it. Because we just don't know.
That aside, terrific win. Good confidence booster for some of the players. But bigger picture here, if Real Madrid are going to be successful again this year like last year, whoa, there's some real big hurdles to get over. Courtois out for a bit. Carvajal's out for the season. That's already been a problematic position. Lucas Vazquez has struggled there in the bigger games. He's injured. Militao is the big one again, out for the season. That's another reshuffle. David Alaba's still out. The left-back position is you know,
Mane's
Fran Garcia played today. Ferland Mendes played there. It's not as problematic as the right-back position, but it's not exactly a strong point. We've discussed in this show the midfield area without Toni Kroos. That was a bit more functional today. But that's a kind of big picture here. It was a great day at the office in terms of result, but a really, really bad day at the office when you look at the injuries, particularly to the back line and particularly to Eder Militao, which is going to make it super tough for Ancelotti to have the successful season that he did last year, even with the injuries.
I mean, Stevie, as a coach, you take Carvajal and Militao out of your back line. Like, how do you survive that? For the season?
Listen, there's not an answer for that. You put your hands together, you pray, and you hope that when you bring a young kid on like Asensio today, you hope somehow this guy turns into a star very, very quickly, because he's got no options. He just doesn't have any options. And so he's in a position now where it's not about coaching, it's about getting a break in terms of particularly the young kid producing for him. Because I don't care how good a coach you are, when you've got that many injuries in one part of the field, you are absolutely praying.
I mean, this is a stretch that they've got to survive. You can't really do anything. You can't improve the roster until the transfer window, but
no.
They probably got to do some shopping here, right, Craig?
Yeah, well, it was only last year Militao was out, wasn't it?
I mean, they could be, I don't want to say dead and buried, but they could be way behind the 8 ball in the league before they even get a chance to
well, they could, and obviously Barcelona play tomorrow, and that's why it was such a big win today. But I tell you what, I mean, sometimes there's not a lot of sympathy for players because it is what it is. It's a consequence of the job that we've all done. Injuries, I'm talking about. Some worse than others. Some people get injured through a really bad challenge, a leg breaker, or another player just been reckless. But to see a player, an elite level international player at the top level, to come back from an ACL as Militao did, like a lot of players come back from it, but most players don't come back from it and then have another one a few months later.
As it finishes in Crystal Palace 2, Manchester City 2. Here's Pep.
The season start difficult, will be difficult all season. So you have to survive. It's a season to survive, a season to every game try to take points, to win games and go forward. So we know it, we feel it, and unfortunately we miss an important player for us this season for the next game against United at home. But in general, what they have done in the circumstances is really, really, really good. So we knew it that from the beginning, for everything was wrong and unlucky in many things, and we have to continue with that, with the players that we have in our disposal. Go to Champions League now in Turin and try to perform well and take our results.
So taking a look at the top of the table, Manchester City sitting 4th. Arsenal, of course, in action tomorrow, as is Chelsea. Liverpool's game against Everton was postponed because of the weather. Frank Leboeuf still with us.
I'm not being funny, but he's gone from a guy who's out there and he's the manager and the team to feel sorry for himself.
Yeah, he's talking about luck.
He's given up the ghost here, isn't he? You know, it's going to be a difficult season, but it's a difficult season for a lot of people. You know, you have got injuries, but you still have good players on the field. Yes. You still had an experienced back four. You're giving silly goals away. You still had good players in the field. You still had Erling Haaland up front. You still had Jack Grealish and Doku and one or two others on the bench. It's not stuffed with talent like it usually is, but it's almost like he's saying, well, I can't win games. Crystal Palace were selling the roof in the summer. I mean, they sold the centre-half to Fulham, and then they were going to sell Mark Gay, the captain, to Newcastle. That went right to the wire. So, you know, Oliver Glasner's getting the rug pulled from under him, and he's just got to go out there and get results. He's not going to be out there moaning about how Crystal Palace sell players and don't buy players. And here we have a manager who's having a tough time, but he's to me, he's chucking it. He's chucking it. He's saying we can't. He's basically saying we have no chance of getting back in the title. That's not the message to send to these players. Come on, you've still got Bernardo Silva on the field. You've got Kevin De Bruyne on the field. You've got Erling Haaland on the field. You've got Ilkay Gundogan on the field. You've signed Savinho, right? You've got Grealish on the bench. You've got Matheus Nunes, who you signed for decent money from Wolves. You've got Diaz in there. You've got Walker in there. You've got Ederson on the bench. Come on. Come on. Yeah, pick your chin up, man. Sitting here saying, wow, it's going to be difficult for us. And you know, they've had it so good. And most of it's been down to him that he seems like he can't figure out how to handle a bad run and some disappointing results. He can't. It seems like he's too used to going in the dressing room when 99% of the time it's positive. Now he's had to go in for the last 6 or 7 games and address the chins on the floor. And quite frankly, he's not dealing with it particularly well.
No, Frank, it's like moaning about luck, and you kind of think, well, you look at the team that was out there, as Craig says today. Yes, we know Rodri's out. We know he's important. But the quality of the players that City had at Selhurst Park today exceeded that at Crystal Palace pretty much in every position.
Yeah, I think for me, he has no much excuses in that matter because, yeah, he has the personnel to be better. And I really think that they should have done better, but in every positioning, it was a big mess today. I mean, lucky they are Ruben Dias, who saved a couple of actions from Crystal Palace. But unlucky for them, they had Kyle Walker, who was in a very bad day, being involved in the two goals. Yeah, they are not in a good sharp in the middle of the park, and offensively, again, they're very slow. Only on the second goal that they found a way to do better, to attack, to surprise by a change of pace the Crystal Palace defense. But otherwise, that's so slow. So we know how they play, and I think Guardiola will have to evolve if he wants to change something. He will have to evolve in a way that the opponents, they know how they play. So they play very low on the field, they're very compact, and it's very hard to surprise them. But because you don't change the pace, because you think of the quality or maybe the tightness that the opponent is going to get, that you're going to surprise them. It doesn't work anymore. So maybe at some point you will have to change something.
I feel like we've said everything there is to say about Manchester City. They're not in this title race, are they?
No.
They're done.
No, they're not. And they're not. They are done, and the manager's not helping. He's not. Right, he's not. And then we saw Ruben Dias after the Liverpool game get tetchy. He got tetchy with Jan, he got tetchy with everybody else. But I tell you where they are. Apart from the results, every team in the Premier League, and I include probably Southampton at the bottom, Ipswich, Palace, the lot of them all feel that they can have a go at this.
Fancy the chances.
They fancy the chances. Now, start of the season and last year, no chance. Even Forest in midweek, where they won by 3. It could have been a whole different story had Ortega not pulled off a cracking save and Chris Wood hadn't missed a 1-on-1. So that was a kind of, and we said it at the time, no, forget that, they're not back. They just won the game. And Palace, like Frank said, Palace could have won this game today, particularly in the first half with the chances that they had. So yeah, the answer is quite simple. They're not in the title race, and they're talking themselves out of it as well.
Who would have thought Manchester United against Manchester City would be 4th versus 13th?